Since I returned from Singapore, another man has been executed. Aswan bin Bahari was hanged on Friday the 4th of October, having been convicted of trafficking 26.5 grams of heroin. That's all from assignment in Singapore. I'm Linda Presley. The producer in Singapore was Rita Rahman, and this edition of the documentary was expertly mixed in the studio by Neil Churchill.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this is CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team at Information Radio, and we will have a great day. It is starting with 11 degrees in downtown Winnipeg. We're heading for a high of 19. We're going to have lots of sunshine, and thanks for joining us on the show. The morning show is on until 8:37 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app, and on YouTube this morning. So let's say good morning to the team to start. Corey Funk is here. Good morning, Corey. Corey's our studio director, a show director, and we'll be on the air covering the commute. Abby Adeyemi is here as well. Good morning, Abby. Giving you the wave from our control room. Abby also covers the morning weather forecasts on our show. And there is Kevin Nipatebo. Kevin Nipatebo, who is paying homage to the shadow puppets I used to do with my sister on the air when I was little. Thanks, Kev. I liked that. That was in our new YouTube shot this morning. Kevin is our YouTube producer. So let's go to our newsroom for more serious matters now. It is 2 minutes now to 6 o'clock. World Report's up in a moment, but Heather Wells here first with your local headlines.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg landlord wants to know why the city is fining victims of arson. Yesterday, City Council's Executive Policy Committee approved a proposal to lower fire service fees charged to the owners of vacant buildings. But the fees they voted for are still higher than the city had recommended. We're going to hear from one property owner whose property caught fire 5 times before the city tore it down. We'll hear how much she was fined and what she has to say about this change. And a holiday tradition in Winnipeg is in jeopardy. Operation Red Nose has lost its host charity, and even though it has another, it still has to raise about $100,000 by November 15th, or it may not run this year. We'll hear from Operation Red Nose in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Cold spot in the province right now is Churchill at -1. The warm spot is Winnipeg with that 11 degrees. So on the program today, the mayor of the city of Winnipeg is going to be here for our monthly interview. We're going to talk to him about rail yard relocation, also retail crime today, and something that's just developed in a bill that's been put forward where you'll need more people if you want to appeal development in your neighborhood of certain properties. You have to have 300 people now that are against something versus 25 people that come forward with concerns. So that's a big change. We'll ask the mayor about it. In addition, in the first hour of the show, we're going to hear from a mum who's part of a group of trans allies putting together care packages.
On Cue with Tom Power.
Florence Pugh has become one of the biggest movie stars in the world right now. I mean, she can take on whatever role she wants. So why is her latest film a small movie about a couple meeting and having a baby in a gas station? Florence Pugh will be here to tell you all about it.
I ran you over. Sorry.
That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. NATO defense ministers are meeting in Brussels over the next 2 days. It is their first meeting chaired by NATO's new chief, Mark Rutte. As Dominic Velitis tells us, the crisis in Ukraine will top the agenda.
Canada's Bill Blair is among the NATO defense ministers attending today's meeting.
Good to see you.
The alliance's new Secretary-General, Mark Rutte, is chairing the 2-day event, his first NATO ministerial meeting since taking over on October 1st, and one which will likely be dominated by the war in Ukraine.
For the long haul, if necessary, we will keep supporting Ukraine. And that is our message to Putin. We are in this, if necessary, for the long haul.
Later today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will visit NATO's HQ in Brussels to discuss his so-called victory plan. And although the alliance is now on target to provide Kyiv with $60 billion in military aid by the end of this year, some member states are more cautious about offering Zelensky what he really wants: an immediate invitation for Ukraine to join NATO, a central component of Zelensky's victory plan and one he believes is essential for defeating Russia. Dominic Velitis for CBC News, Riga, Latvia.
Both U.S. presidential candidates were on unfamiliar territory last evening. Republican Donald Trump faced a Latino audience on Univision, a Spanish-language network. And the Democratic Party's Kamala Harris was interviewed by the conservative-leaning Fox News. Ethel Musa is tracking both. And Ethel, let's begin with Kamala Harris. How did her interview play out?
Well, Kamala Harris's interview with Fox News is being described as combative, heated, and testy. She clashed repeatedly with her host, Bret Baier, who regularly interrupted her when discussing issues like illegal immigration, gender-affirming surgeries for prisoners, and Joe Biden's mental fitness. Some political experts are applauding her decision to speak with the conservative-leaning network, which is popular with millions of Republican voters who Harris is hoping to appeal to. Last night, she took aim at her opponent Donald Trump's policies and divisive style of politicking, and Harris made it clear she will bring her own stamp to the presidency.
My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership.
And how did Donald Trump's town hall go?
The town hall was hosted by Univision, the biggest Spanish-language broadcaster in the U.S., and the audience was filled with undecided Hispanic voters. The former president touted his record on the economy, but he refused to back down on false claims that Haitian migrants were eating cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio. Trump also described January 6, the day his supporters stormed the Capitol in a riot, this way.
That was a day of love from the standpoint of the millions. It's like hundreds of thousands. It could have been the largest group I've ever spoken before.
Hispanic voters are a critical voting bloc, especially in two battleground states, Nevada and Arizona.
All right. Thank you, Ethel.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Ethel Musa in Washington. Ottawa says Palestinians who fled Gaza will receive financial aid to help their transition once they arrive in Canada. Immigration Mark Miller says the federal government will also offer health coverage for 3 months, as well as language training and free study and work permits. The Assembly of First Nations is expected to hold a vote today on changing how children are treated on reserves. The federal government is offering close to $48 billion to reform the First Nations child welfare system. The AFN is holding a special Chiefs Assembly in Calgary this week to decide how to move forward. As Olivia Stefanovich reports, First Nations leaders are being urged to accept a proposed deal before the next federal election.
Can we count on a Conservative government to negotiate a better deal on First Nations child welfare?
The National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations says she isn't sure. So Cindy Woodhouse-Neepanak is encouraging the AFN to accept the Liberals' offer before there could be a change in government.
And I'm optimistic that we can find some common ground. But we are not at the stage where I can stand before you as National Chief and guarantee that we can get a better deal with a Conservative administration.
Ottawa is proposing $47.8 billion over the next decade, an enormous amount of money to tackle a generational problem: the underfunding of First Nations child and family services on reserves, a system that's led to more children torn from their homes than at the height of residential schools.
We want to get this right.
Victor Linklater is one of the many AFN delegates raising questions about the proposed deal. Struck with the AFN just this past summer, leaving chiefs with little time to go over the fine print.
It's 178 pages. The longer we have with it, our experts are going in there and finding loopholes that's going to hurt our people. And one of the greatest fears I have is that we are going to become the discriminators of our own children.
A consideration weighing heavily on First Nations leaders as they prepare to accept or reject the federal government's multi-billion-dollar offer. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Ottawa police are being criticized for their handling of cases involving intimate partner violence. It comes after a man was convicted last week of murdering his estranged wife. Critics say police failed to follow mandatory charging policies. Christine Neese explains.
The room is video and audio recorded.
The Ottawa police video from 2013 shows an officer in a small room with Hanadi Mohammed. Through an Arabic interpreter, Mohammed describes life under the rule of her husband, Hamid Ayoub, his control of her and their kids, her fear, how she's expected to serve him.
He thinks he's dealing with me as if we're still in Sudan, in my previous country.
Then she describes him placing his arm around her neck, grabbing a knife, and asking why she called police in the past. The officer says she has to charge Ayoub, and she refers to mandatory charging policies in domestics. They've been in place across Canada since the 80s to reduce this form of violence.
Because if I don't do anything and something happens to you, then I'm in big trouble for not protecting you.
The officer ended up doing nothing after the interview. During the trial, she testified she didn't lay charges because Mohammed feared backlash. She ended up back with Ayoub within days, and he murdered her and stabbed their daughter 8 years later in 2021.
That is the story of these cases, right? Missed opportunities.
Leanne Burns is a retired lawyer who's been trying to improve police responses to domestic violence for years. She helps review hundreds of Ottawa cases annually.
They seem to disappear far too many reports without adequately investigating them. We see examples of that every year.
Ottawa police declined an interview. In a statement, it says 2 new hires are reviewing domestics and following up with victims, and a risk assessment tool is coming next year. But the force also says it can and must do better. Christine Neese, CBC News, Ottawa.
In just over a month, Taylor Swift will be in Toronto to perform 6 sold-out shows. As Lisa Shing tells us, many of her fans are falling victim to ticket scams online. Some thought they were buying tickets from friends.
It's me. For die-hard fans, Taylor Swift's popularity has created some big problems.
It's just hard to point out who is real.
For a year now, Summer Nichols has been on Facebook in search of tickets to the Vancouver shows in December, to no avail.
They're very needy. They want you to send the money now.
Tickets to the singer's Canadian dates sold out instantly, and resale prices skyrocketed to thousands of dollars. Now that the shows are coming up, Swifties who weren't able to get them are on the hunt. So are scammers, hacking into Facebook accounts and posting they have tickets for sale. Someone even made a fake profile of Nichols' own account to try and scam others. Cybersecurity analyst Ritesh Kotak.
It adds an element of legitimacy when it's coming from a friend.
Trying to figure out what's real can be tough, and fans say Facebook isn't rushing to crack down on the fraud. So make sure you verify the seller's identity, like calling up that friend, says Toronto police detective David Coffey.
It's very, very difficult for that money to ever be seen again. It's beyond the financial loss. It's really the heartbreak that we see, because it's parents that are desperate to buy these tickets for their kids, or kids themselves who are desperate.
Like Nicole, who will continue scouring.
I'm willing to pay a pretty penny.
Even if it means standing outside the venue when the time comes. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Oh, look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what you just made me do. Look what you just
Follow Taylor Swift. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on 89.3 FM CBC. Thanks so much for joining us. You might be on YouTube with us this morning as well. 9 degrees in the city now. It's clear, and 9 already, I should say, at 6:10 a.m. So we're going to have a pretty decent day. Abby's got our forecast in a moment, as always. This hour on the show, we're going to hear from a mom who's part of a group of trans allies putting together care packages for the Trans Day of Remembrance, but they're looking for some donations and support, so we'll tell you all about that. Also, there's a recent report that shows some alarming gaps in young people's sexual health knowledge and not using condoms. We're going to bring you that story this hour on the program as well. And the witness, his testimony and the reaction. We'll go over what was revealed yesterday in some more detail at the public inquiry into foreign interference when Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was the only person called to answer questions. So that's coming up just before 7 for you. Right now, Heather Wells is in with local headlines and developing news. Hi, Heather.
Good morning. Well, some members of Winnipeg's Sikh community are concerned about those diplomatic tensions between Canada and India. There is a possible link, according to sources telling CBC News, between a Sikh activist killed in BC and a homicide last year in Winnipeg. Indirjit Singh Brar lives near where that happened, and he says there's been another incident a year ago that was concerning, so we'll hear about that. Also, 2 Winnipeg teens caught stealing on camera have confessed and apologized after a social media shaming. We'll hear that story as well in our next local news at 6:30.
Thank you, Heather Wells.
You're welcome.
And it's time for that weather forecast now. Abby Adeyemi is just getting seated and getting ready to deliver the good news. We told you all that we were going to be, near 20 today, and that is holding in our forecast. And it looks like we're going to have lots of sunshine as well, Abby. So not a bad day ahead. The wind, though, is going to be a factor too, I understand?
Yeah, the wind is going to be factored in. Right now, 9 degrees in the city. Today will actually be mostly sunny for the southern region and also warmer temperatures we will be seeing, while the north will see lots of clouds and cooler highs. Currently, Winnipeg, 9 degrees. It is clear outside for today. We should be seeing sunny skies with some cloud cover developing as we get to the noon period. It will then become breezy with temperatures, climbing to close to 20 for Winnipeg. We only get to a high of 19 today, which is way above our seasonal for this time of the year, and then some partly cloudy conditions tonight. Thompson, currently it's mostly cloudy there, while we're seeing misty conditions in Churchill at -1. For down south, sunny skies, reaching highs of 20s, but tonight we get to see chances of rain rolling in a lot of regions. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at 9, heading to a high of 19.
Corey Funk has just sat down in the studio. I'm wondering with you guys, we're listening to the Taylor Swift kicker on World Report there, the last story. What was your big did you have a big concert? Were you concert goers at all? Maybe you weren't. I don't know. That you like, when you were younger, I got to see this group or big show.
You're going to be like, oh, you're so niche.
Okay.
There's this Finnish speed metal band called Sonata Arctica.
Sonata Arctica?
Sonata Arctica.
Oh,
Sonata.
It could have been. It's a bad name. Sonata Arctica.
And I was like a really big fan, and they came to Winnipeg, and I was just like stoked out of my mind.
Cool. Ironic, right?
What? No, not ironic. It was genuine. Love for Finnish speed metal.
Actually, I kind of want to hear it now. Abby, did you have a?
Yeah, I was a big Craig David fans back in the day. He's this big guy in the UK. He's like world known for, when you mean in the UK area, they were like,
everybody
this guy
knows.
is big. And, I craved for his concert, and I enjoyed it because he's a DJ and also a performer. So he really gave a big show. I was really dying to see that show.
Love that.
It was really amazing.
Now I want to put Craig David in, what did you say?
Sonata
Arctica. Now I got to check those out, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I'm lame. I went to see Corey Hart in 1987, and I barely paid attention because I had a crush on this boy that was sitting 2 rows behind me, and he was wearing his sweatband, and he was like holding his arm up going, yeah. And I kept looking back, but pretending I wasn't looking back. I missed half the show. So, yeah. All right, let's get into the forecast here we've gone through the forecast. Nice day, but let's get into the commute with Corey.
Yeah, well, I do forecast maybe some issues on Eaglewood Drive today until tomorrow. So what's happening is there's actually be a modular Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service Station being built in the Waverly West area. So what's going to be happening is it's actually starting last night, the southbound lanes of Eaglewood Drive from Skyline Drive to the Element on Eaglewood complex entrance. It's going to be closed starting yesterday until tomorrow. October 19th, so until Saturday at 8 p.m. So that's going to probably throw off folks who do take Eaglewood Crescent. So that's Eaglewood Drive, sorry. So that's one kind of little issue locally in Waverly West. Haven't heard of any other major issues out there, but if you do see something going on, feel free to give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right, thank you, Corey. Well, up first on the show, the Transgender Day of Remembrance is coming up next month. That day can be really lonely for people in the trans community who may have lost a loved one to transphobia. Now, it can also be isolating to not be connected to your biological family or to feel like you belong to a community. And that is why a group called You Are Loved Winnipeg is putting together 50 care packages for people who may need extra love on that day. Kaylin Falk is up early and with us via Zoom. Kaylin's a local Winnipegger, a mom who volunteers with the group. Good morning to you.
Good morning. It's nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too, I was going to say. So tell me a little bit about what motivated you to get involved in this beautiful cause.
So a couple of years ago, just during COVID, I was thinking about Trans Day of Remembrance, and I really do want to honor those we've lost, but I realized one thing I really wanted to do was celebrate those who are still here. And so my daughter is trans and we have a chosen family member who's trans. And so I was putting together care packages for them. Then I realized they're not really the ones that need a care package because they've got me all the time. And so we just sort of put it out and we said, is there anyone else that wants one? And we got about 40 responses that year. And so the next year we gave 50 out, and it was just a really great way of coming together as allies, of being able to say, combating transphobia, it's not enough just to be silent, but we need to be celebrating the people that we know and that we don't know who are having just a very different experience. So we took a year off, and because we just went, maybe things are so hard, a cookie is not going to help. But this year we're like, no, we're pretty sure a cookie is still better than nothing. And so we're getting together packages with cookies and a resource package. And this year, one of our big things, we're making blankets, because we're personalizing them with people's names inside. And then when you wrap yourself up in this, it feels like you're getting a hug. So this is something that we are building for this year.
Oh, I love that. Wrap that around yourself, Kaylin, for our camera and our YouTube viewers so we can kind of look at that blanket. It looks like it's all fleecy and it's cutie patootie.
Yeah, and then their names are embroidered in here, which names sometimes are chosen for people who are trans, and sometimes they can't even be known in public by those names because they have to be confidential. And so we just want that close to their heart of we really see you and we celebrate you.
That's really beautiful. Who is making those blankets so personal like that? Like, who's putting them together?
Yeah, well, right now it's me, and I did one. And my crafting skill is very small. My heart is in the good place, but we do need people who, part of this is also us coming together. So all of the four of us that are planning this are all moms of either trans or non-binary people. And we also kind of want other people to come and join us. And so we're having 2 blanket making days. These are no-sew blankets. So my skill level, I can still do it, but we do need help. We're a little bit daunted by making 50 of them. So we're hoping that people will join us in providing baking, some of the financial support of buying the fabric and making the blankets. We also need people who can drive and will deliver the blankets. Or the care packages. We're doing that the Sunday before Trans Day of Remembrance, which is November 17th.
Okay, so drivers, no-sew blankets, which, or if you can sew, even better. Cookies and food. Can you share a little bit about that? If sometimes people worry about, food donations, what should they understand if they're able to donate something in that regard?
Sure. Well, there's a Google form that people can sign because we're trying to match up. We also recognize that people are having very different experiences of what they can and cannot eat. And so we're looking to find bakers who can make anything. We're really looking primarily at cookies and things that will package well. We had a bit of a cupcake fiasco in the past where they do not turn out well.
They don't travel well. No.
And then we're also looking for like gluten-free bakers, nut-free bakers, people that can accommodate special allergies. And then we kind of thought one thing that we wanted to give is the ability for the care package recipients to also host and show care for their community. So we're making soup kits and a loaf of bread so that they can, they get the package and then they can actually put on a pot of soup and invite their community over, because we do recognize that community is a really big aspect of this.
What have people said in the past when they receive a package, and how does someone, get involved in receiving a package?
So there's a Google form too that is going out, and it's been kind of available for 24 hours, and we already have 12 people who either have asked for one or who have nominated someone to get one. So either one, you can do that. And I think the links are, you have some way of disseminating the links.
Yep.
The QR code is right there. And so they're actually asking for a package. There are some people that really find it, it's November, we're entering this holiday season, and people are really needing just that voice of like, we do see you, and you are important to us. And so it has been quite meaningful to a lot of people. And then even that one year that we stopped doing it, we had a few people write us in and said, "Are the packages coming this year?" And we were like, "Oh, we didn't think it really made a difference." But then we really realized it's a small thing, but it's one thing that we can do.
Well, we'll try to see if people listening can come forward and help in any way they can. I have youarelovedwinnipeg@gmail.com. Is that the right place for people to start if they can help out?
That's the easiest way. If you have any questions, just youarelovedwinnipeg@gmail. You can email me and we'll get you set up with the forms or answer any questions you have.
All right. Thanks a lot, Kaylin. Appreciate having you with us early via Zoom. You can now put that blanket back on and lie down and go back to sleep.
They go underneath.
Take care. Thank you.
Hey, take care. Thank you.
That's Kaylin Falk, local Winnipegger and mom who volunteers with You Are Loved Winnipeg. If you'd like to volunteer, donate funds, receive a package, if you can drive and help on the Trans Day of Remembrance, which is coming up on November 20th, you can email Kaylin directly, and that is youarelovedwinnipeg@gmail.com.
Marketers almost always tell you to do something, but sometimes they say don't, like don't toss trash.
Oh, you mean the litter?
Yeah, you see the guy who threw this out the window. You tell him I got a message for him.
Or don't fry your brain.
This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs.
Don't Do It Advertising Part 1 on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
9 degrees in Winnipeg already this morning. Brandon, not so much. Mainly clear and 1. Thompson's warmer, though, mostly cloudy and 6 degrees currently there. Well, next on the show, a new national survey has found some alarming gaps in what young Canadians understand about sexually transmitted infections and HIV. The survey, conducted by Angus Reid for Let's Stop AIDS, also found fewer young people are using condoms. To talk us through what the findings are, Jerson Scheidweiler is with us. He's the executive advisor with Let's Stop AIDS, which is the group, as mentioned, that commissioned and designed the survey, as well as wrote the report. Good morning.
Good morning.
So we're talking about 18 to 24-year-olds in this report. What was most concerning to you about what you found?
Well, one of the most concerning trends from this year's Let's Stop AIDS Sex Lies report is that young people are using condoms less and less. In fact, 64% of sexually active Canadians reported inconsistent condom use. That means they're using it sometimes. And on top of that, 7 out of 10 young Canadians, so 70%, said that they've never been tested for STIs or HIV in the country.
Do you understand why there's a decline in condom use?
Yeah, there are multiple reasons behind this, but for youth specifically, we see 3 main factors. The first one is it's a personal choice. Many young people simply don't view condoms as necessary or important anymore because of the advances we've seen in other tools to prevent pregnancies, STIs, and HIV. Second, there is the issue of access. So think about it, going to a drugstore and you are like 17, 16 years old, walking down that aisle, facing all the options, picking the right one, and then standing at the cashier. It is challenging for a young man or a young woman. And finally, there is the affordability issue, because sometimes it's not everyone that will have steady income to buy condoms. So that could be a financial challenge.
You raised another concern that there's not people aren't being tested for STIs, I think you said. So tell me why that's a concern.
Well, like many STIs and especially HIV, they are invisible or they have invisible symptoms. So if you're not being tested, you cannot put those individuals on treatment, and treatment is the main or the major way to avoid new infections and actually prevent new infections in the country. So testing has to be free and heavily available for everyone.
What has to happen to get more young people using condoms? You also raised the issue of cost, so I know that's probably part of the answer, but overall, what else has to be done?
Yeah, the issue with condom use is that it is still the most cost-effective way to prevent unwanted pregnancies, STIs, and HIV. So if someone chooses not to use condoms, that's their decision, but they need to be fully aware of the risks they are taking. So ideally, we should provide free condoms everywhere, like in washrooms and other facilities. But also we need to provide a proper sex education and not a sex education that is heavily based on fear, like the fear of getting pregnant, the fear of getting infected, because young people need to feel free and comfortable on having these conversations and where to get the tools that they need to have a healthy sexual journey.
What's the role of parents and families when you think about teens maybe not comfortable discussing these issues? So what are your suggestions there?
Yeah, Let's Stop AIDS understands that these conversations can be really difficult or tough for many parents. That's why we have many programs to try to address this issue and provide a gamified sex ed experience. But open communication is essential for an individual's development. So if it's not just about providing the tool, but show that the family is a safe place to discuss about things that are part of everyone's life, because with sex ed or without it, young people are going to have sex at some point in their lives, and they have to feel that a family is a place where they can talk, where they can show their concerns. And if having these conversations is too embarrassing, we need to make sure that young people are getting reliable information from somewhere else, from schools, healthcare system, or civil society organizations like us.
Gerson, thank you very much for being with us this morning. I appreciate you telling us about the report.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's Gerson Scheidweiler, Executive Advisor of Let's Stop AIDS, a Canadian youth-led HIV charity. We reached him this morning in Toronto looking at their latest report that talked about a survey that they had out, that found some alarming gaps in what young Canadians understand about sexually transmitted infection and HIV.
Breaking news happens anywhere, anytime.
Police have warned the protesters repeatedly, get back.
CBC News brings the story to you as it happens.
Hundreds of wildfires are burning.
Be the first to know what's going on and what that means for you and for Canadians.
This situation has changed very quickly.
Helping make sense of the world when it matters most. Stay in the know. CBC News.
Well, 330 employees of the Canadian Revenue Agency are out of jobs. There's been some firings. We're going to find out more about that on our business news this morning. Christely Ramlakan's going to be joining us. Also, she has details on a historic move in corporate Canada. So we're going to find out more about what that's all about when she joins us right around 6:35. So right after our news, which is coming up momentarily here. I also want to mention that a little bit later in the program, we're going to have part 2 of a feature interview with Chief Justice Glenn Joyal in Manitoba about the system here. What does he have to say to the idea that our bail system is a, quote, revolving door for offenders to be back on the street? And I shouldn't be saying quote, I'm trying to reiterate what you hear from people when you ask people about their concerns about justice in Manitoba. I put that question to Chief Justice Joyal, and so we're going to find out more from him about what his response was. And we also are going to find out more about what part of our system in Manitoba that he calls, and this is a quote, shameful compared to other provinces. So stay tuned. That's coming up later on Information Radio. You are with CBC this morning. Your morning commute's going pretty smoothly so far, but call us, please, if you have anything to highlight, whether you're in the city or out on the highway. The number's the same on the CBC commuter line. It's 788-3093. And your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 9 degrees in Winnipeg, and that's the normal high this time of year. It's going to be windy today. We warm up to 19 this afternoon. Some members of Winnipeg's Sikh community are concerned about diplomatic tensions between Canada and India. It comes as police in Canada investigate what they allege is the involvement of agents of the Indian government in violence on Canadian soil. That includes what sources tell CBC News is a possible link between 3 men accused in the killing of a Sikh separatist activist in BC and a homicide last year in Winnipeg. 39-year-old Sukhdev Singh Gill was found dead in a home in the northwest part of Winnipeg in September 2023. Indirjit Singh Brar lives nearby and is worried.
The last year there was an incident happened in my community and we were very concerned about that. It was like early morning when this happened and the kids were going to the school at the time. And I don't want this thing to happen in this community.
Winnipeg police say they won't comment on Gill's homicide because their investigation is ongoing. No arrests have been made. A Winnipeg business owner has used social media to teach a lesson to 2 young thieves. It happened last week at the beer vendor attached to 4 Crowns restaurant and bar on McPhillips. Owner Ravi Rambaran says his surveillance camera captured 2 boys stealing alcohol. He posted their photos to social media and was impressed when the 2 culprits came forward to confess. They were 14 and 15 years old. At that age, he felt it wouldn't be helpful to involve police, so he talked to them instead about the consequences of their actions.
I thought it was good to reach out and just, give these kids a chance, let them learn from someone who's not a teacher or a principal or a police officer, how these things can go bad and why it's important to stop now.
Rambaran says the teens have apologized and have offered to work off what they stole from his business. The Assembly of First Nations is meeting in Calgary.
Can we count on a Conservative government to negotiate a better deal on First Nations child welfare?
AFN National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak. The First Nations leaders are expected to vote today on whether to accept a $47 billion child welfare settlement being offered by the Trudeau government. Woodhouse-Nepenak is urging membership to agree to the deal, saying there's no guarantee any future governments will match the offer. The settlement addresses the chronic underfunding First Nations child and family services have faced over the generations. A Winnipeg landlord wants to know why the city is fining victims of arson. Yesterday, City Council's Executive Policy Committee approved a proposal to lower fire service fees charged to vacant building owners. But the fees they voted for are still higher than city staff had recommended. Maria Suzuki owned an Elgin Avenue property that caught fire 5 times before the city tore it down. She was fined $138,000.
It's good that they realize that they have to make a change for that. But I still don't understand why us landlord has to pay for the fire fee if it's an arson and then if he were a victim for the crime.
A recent report found the city collected just $79,000 of the $1.2 million in fines it issued last year. Suzuki says nearly half of that was money she paid. Operation Red Nose hopes generous Winnipeggers will help keep it going. The holiday Safe Ride service recently lost its longtime host charity, Manta Swim Club. Elisha Dacey at Operation Red Nose says a brand new charity called the Winnipeg Kids Foundation has taken over as host charity. However, Operation Red Nose still needs to raise $100,000 by November 15th.
We need to replace technology, especially our phones are pretty ancient. Our app needs a serious upgrade. And then, of course, space for the volunteers and all sorts of incidentals that come along with marketing, etc. So it's more complicated than people think.
Dacey says they also need to cover operating costs like gas. For its part, Manta Swim Club, in a statement, says Operation Red Nose had been providing less revenue. As well, it says it's been difficult to recruit volunteer drivers. Tributes are pouring in for Liam Payne. The former One Direction singer died yesterday.
You're insecure, don't know what for. You're turning heads when you walk through the door.
Payne joined the British boy band when he was 16 years old. The group skyrocketed in popularity before taking a break in 2015. Payne and other members, including Harry Styles and Zayn Malik, went on to release solo albums. Police in Argentina say Liam Payne died of injuries after falling from a hotel balcony in Buenos Aires. An investigation is underway. He was just 31 years old. You can hear more on that story and other national news coming up on World Report at 7. You can find more Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather. Thank you, Heather. Let's get into what's going on now in our regional weather forecast from CBC. Abby Adiemi's in.
Yeah, clear outside, 9 degrees. We're expecting sunny skies today with some clouds developing this afternoon. It will become breezy at some point. We warm up to 19 for Winnipeg today. Brandon at 1 at this time. We'll be seeing mainly clear skies. Then plenty of sunshine in the forecast. Becoming breezy as we approach the afternoon period. We warm up to 19 also for folks in Brandon. Thompson is sitting at 6, mostly cloudy at this time. Today we should be seeing mainly cloudy skies. There's a slim chance of showers in the forecast. You then warm up to 11. Churchill, 0, misty conditions you're seeing at this time. You notice some showers this morning as you woke up. They should be tapering off as you approach the noon period, followed by a mix of sun and clouds, and temperatures will be warming up to 5 degrees. Down in Dauphin, 2 degrees and clear at this time, mainly sunny conditions in the forecast. Then we see a transition to a mix of sun and clouds later in the day, becoming breezy with a high of 17. Gimli, 7 and clear. Today's forecast for the Interlake region actually calls for more of like a sunny day. Then you see a transition to a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon, becoming breezy from the south and a high of 16. Steinbach at 7 and clear. Today's forecast calls for mainly sunny conditions, highs reaching around 20. And Morris is at 8 and clear at this time. Today's forecast also calls for sunny conditions, becoming a mix of sun and clouds, some breeze in the afternoon, and then you warm up to about 21. So across the board, we're going to be seeing more like sunny and breezy conditions with temperatures ranging from low single digits in the north, and then we'll see 20s in the south. Winnipeg will be warming up to 19 degrees today, which is way like 10 degrees above the normal for this time of the year. This time of the year, we're supposed to be like around 9, but we're going to be getting to 19.
Crazy. All right, so stick around for a second because we're going to actually have some musical fun. But first, Corey's got 10 news in the commute.
Yeah, I'm just looking ahead. So nothing too bad going on right now, but starting tonight at 8 p.m., the city's installing actually a modular fire paramedic service station in Waverly West. So that means that all the southbound lanes starting tonight at 8 p.m. are going to be closed on Eaglewood Drive, starting from Skyline Drive to the Element on Eaglewood Complex entrance, says the city. And that's going to go until 8 p.m. on Saturday night, that closure. That also means there's be no parking signs along Eaglewood Drive from Waverly Street to Skyline Drive. So there is rerouting going on there too. So heads up there. That starts tonight at 8 p.m. Otherwise, haven't heard of any major issues, but if you see something going on, give me a call, 204-788-3093.
Wow, there is nothing like having a chat on radio about music and then not hearing the music. It's one of my big bugaboos. And so earlier this hour, we were talking about Taylor Swift. She's going to be in Toronto for all her sold-out shows next month. And we got to chatting about what our, I guess, Taylor Swift was back in the day, what a memorable concert who you had to see. So you guys actually have musical cues lined up now. So Corey, your group again was who?
Sonata Arctica. They were a Finnish speed metal band. Still are a Finnish speed metal band.
Speed metal.
Yeah, in high school I was a big fan, and you probably might have some like misconceptions about metal, speed metal, what it might sound like. But just listen.
Listen, okay.
See, you can get a little bit.
Hang on.
Mm-hmm. See, it can be kind of tender.
Give me more. Hang on.
Do you feel a bit of a mystical wind blowing in the studio? You might want to put up your hair, Marcy, because...
Turn his mic off so I can listen to this.
Brace yourself.
Oh, okay.
Woo! Right? They've got the... Oh, man. They're so good.
I did feel the mystical wind, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then, yes, there's the speed metal.
And then there's some guitar in there. It's epic. The backup singer, he has his mic about a meter off the ground because he does the splits every time he does backup. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
really?
He's the guitarist, and he puts his mic way down on the ground. Everything about them is amazing. I love them very much.
It's got a bit of a Gowan vibe. Do you know who Gowan is from back in the day in the 80s? Now you got to get some Gowan. I bet you'll like it. And Abby, when you were a young Abby, what was your jam?
Well, I'll take you back 24 years because this is something from Craig David's. I grooved to this song back then, and I looked forward to seeing him on stage, and I swore they'd enjoy it. More chill.
Can you really tell who people are when we play these? Okay, now I'm talking over the music. Is he going to sing or what?
He's going to sing now. Wait for it.
Okay.
I'm walking away from the troubles in my life. I'm walking away. Gonna find a better day. I'm walking away from the troubles.
All it needs is just some keytar and some double kickers, and it would be the perfect song.
No, I'm with Abby, I think, on this one, but fun stuff. I like it. Chris Lee Ramlick has been listening to us talk about our musical choices, waiting to do business news. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good, Marcy. How are you?
Good. Are you thinking about your first concert, or you're back in the day, the one you had to see?
Yeah, well, okay. I went and saw Beyonce finally last summer because I had tickets to On the Run tour there in Winnipeg for, I think, 2014, but I couldn't get the time off work, so I had to miss the concert and sell my tickets. It was, I was devastated.
No. Yeah. Anyone would have been devastated.
So last year, Beyonce in Toronto was my redemption tour. Renaissance tour, it was my redemption tour.
Thank goodness you got the time off.
Yeah. Exactly.
Second time's a charm. All right, let's talk business news. The Canada Revenue Agency has fired a few hundred people, over 300 of them, I understand. What happened?
Yeah, so the CRA has terminated 330 employees for inappropriately receiving the Canada Emergency Response Benefit during the pandemic. So the agency launched an internal review last June into employees who received CERB despite being ineligible. And the review identified 600 employees for further investigation. And as some people remember, the benefit provided $2,000 per month to Canadians whose jobs were lost as a result of public health restrictions. So the agency says 40 people have faced other disciplinary action as well, such as suspension, and 135 workers were actually eligible. So they did not face any consequences. Some would have been eligible because they were students or term employees. The CRA says employees who inappropriately received CERB are also required to pay back the money. And the agency says a small number of continuing cases, including employees who were on medical or extended unpaid leave, will take more time to complete.
Let's go to another story. You have details on a historic move in corporate Canada this morning.
Yeah, that's right. So Cedar Leaf Capital is set to become the country's first majority Indigenous-owned investment dealer after getting the green light from regulators. So Cedar Leaf intends to help business and government clients raise money through debt issuance, and it will also potentially expand into advisory services and equity capital markets. And the firm is being launched as a collaboration between Scotiabank and Enchikai Development Corporation, owned by Squamish First Nation in BC, the Des Nede Group, owned by English River First Nation in Saskatchewan, and the Chippewas of Rama First Nation in Ontario. So Cedar Leaf will aim to support Indigenous economic participation and create commercial opportunities for Indigenous communities. Clint Davis is the CEO, and he is originally from Goose Bay, Labrador, and is a member of Nunatsiavut, which was the last Inuit land claim to be settled in this country.
And finally,
Scotiabank is a 30% shareholder. They're actually the catalyst behind setting this up in support of their commitment to truth and reconciliation. And so the ultimate goal is to have a 100% Indigenous-owned and controlled investment dealer, which means that they will divest their interest over time. And will we become a competitor? Sure, down the road. I'm hoping we're probably going to end up collaborating quite a bit as well, too. But it is a market that we're definitely going to be competing in and trying our best to earn some business.
And Cedar Leaf plans to start operations later this month.
Sorry about that, Chris Lee. I stepped in your clip there. And finally, your last story here is about a labor shortage in an industry that we actually do not always talk about. You're talking about butlers.
Yes. And of course, this is not a problem that a lot of people are facing. Most people do not have live-in help. But a new report on this is kind of an interesting look into this side of life. And, of course, people who work in the industry, they can earn a pretty decent living by being a head butler. So in North America, someone with this kind of job is often referred to as a house manager. So anyway, why is there a shortage? Well, rich families have congregated in cities like London and New York City, increasing demand. Many bought additional properties during the pandemic and need even more help. Oh no, for them, I guess. And there's been backlogs for visas and other paperwork, especially post-Brexit. And rising rents in the countryside, where many wealthy families bought manors, have priced workers out. So Charles McPherson is a butler and is the founder of Charles McPherson Associates, where he trains people. And he sees this happening in Canada too.
The issue is, if you wanted me to put, a bum in a seat of a butler, I can do that, within the week. But the problem is they don't have any experience. It's people who are trying to transition into the industry traditionally, or it's people who are in the hospitality industry who want to go into private service. Can I fill it with someone who is really, seasoned? The short answer is there is a true shortage.
And he says the job in Canada can start out at $75,000 and only goes up with experience.
Well, what's happening in the market so far this morning?
In Europe, markets are higher as traders look ahead to the next monetary policy decision from the European Central Bank. Germany, the UK, and France are all up. In Asia, markets are falling. Japan, Shanghai, and Hong Kong are all down. Oil is up at 21 cents to $70.60 US per barrel. Gold is up at $13.60 to $2,687.80 US per ounce. And the dollar is down 0.15 of a cent to 72.6 cents US.
All right, Crystal Ramlicam, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
Via Zoom with our business news. We talk to Crystal Ramlicam every day here on the show. Well, the vibes from that tune that we just had on were so good, we thought we'd give it all to you. So from the album Born to Do It, this is the full tune from Craig David. It's called Walking Away, released in August of 2000. Craig David walking away. It is 9 minutes to 7 o'clock on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at the show. Our high today is 19 on the Thursday morning here, and we are going to be about 10 degrees above seasonal average. It's going to be a little bit windy, going to be sunny though as well. Well, reaction continues after the Prime Minister testified yesterday at the public inquiry into foreign interference.
I have the names of a number of parliamentarians, former parliamentarians and or candidates in the Conservative Party of Canada who are engaged or at high risk of, or for whom there is clear intelligence around foreign interference.
Now, that allegation from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau yesterday at the public inquiry into foreign interference, he was the sole witness to testify on Wednesday. It happened in a week where Canada ordered 6 Indian diplomats out of the country, as you likely know. And for more on all of it, Sarah Ritchie is here, Ottawa news editor for the Canadian Press. Good morning.
Good morning.
So briefly remind us what the purpose of this phase of the inquiry is.
Sure. This is the second phase of this public inquiry, and it's looking into the capacity of Canada's institutions to detect, deter, and counter foreign interference that in some way is targeting Canada's democratic processes. So the first phase, and the first time we saw the Prime Minister testify about this, it was pretty tightly focused on the allegations that foreign states like Canada, or like China and India, for example, had tried to interfere in Canada's last 2 federal elections. The interim report from the inquiry found that, in fact, they did try to interfere with our elections, but they did not have an effect on the overall results. And so this time around in his testimony, Trudeau was being asked about the kinds of intelligence that's available to his office and how senior officials handled it. And of course, given what happened with India over the past week, there were a lot of questions as well about sort of current issues.
And what did he reveal, first of all, about the inquiry about India?
So he was asked about the June 2023 murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Surrey, BC. You'll remember this is the case that sort of kicked off this whole issue with India that culminated in us kicking out 6 Indian diplomats this week. So in September of last year, the Prime Minister stood in the House of Commons and informed Canadians that Canada had credible intelligence to link the Indian government to Nijjar's killing. It's an explosive allegation, and it was the kind of thing that sort of shocked people at the time. And I was struck by him yesterday talking about how this came to be. He said that initially he was told by intelligence agencies this was thought to be a gang-related killing and that there wasn't really any international concerns at play. But because South Asian MPs and members of the South Asian community across Canada were so insistent that India must have been involved, he actually went back and asked intelligence agencies to take another look into this. And that's when he found out that Canada's intelligence agencies were already investigating what happened. He said over the course of that summer, he learned about this credible intelligence linking India to the killing. And the approach from the Canadian government at the time was to try to engage with the government of India in a way that he said doesn't blow up the relationship between the two countries. So he walked us through the way that senior Canadian officials approached Indian officials at the G20 summit that was being hosted in India that year, and the fact that he also talked through a meeting that he had with his counterpart, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, at the G20. He said he went to Modi and said, we have evidence, we have intelligence rather, that links, India. We know you were involved. You need to help us and cooperate with us and give us, some access to what your national security folks have available to you, but that the Indian officials were really not interested in cooperating.
Now, what more do we learn from the Prime Minister about something else, the threat to Conservative MP Michael Chong, and how was that dealt with? Because people might recall that Chong learned from a media story that the Chinese government was targeting him and his family.
Yeah, that media story alleged that Chong was being targeted, his family members were being targeted in Hong Kong, that Chinese diplomats were gathering information on them as a result of the way that he has been outspoken about China's record on human rights and about different issues related to China in the House of Commons here in Canada. And what we heard yesterday was that Trudeau also learned about this from the media. He said when he saw the media stories, he asked national security officials to figure out what was going on and why he wasn't aware of this before. And what he told us yesterday in his testimony is that it became clear to him in investigating what was going on here that the Chinese government wasn't engaged in interference so much as influence. He called it the kind of diplomatic collection of information that could be used to inform sanctions, for example. But ultimately, Canada didn't feel it was appropriate and sort of pushed back on China taking part in this kind of activity, asked China to remove one of its diplomats from the country because he'd been gathering this information on Chong's family. And Trudeau said that basically it had become clear to us that Zhao Wei would not be able to act as a normal diplomat in Canada anymore because his name was associated with this story and because people knew that this was the kind of activity he was undertaking. And so it ultimately resulted in Canada removing him from the country. But he also pointed out that in the back and forth between Canada and China about this, Canada tried to warn, you need to stop doing this kind of interference, and that as a result, China actually ramped up its interference activities over time.
Just in our last minute here, I wonder if you can tell us about a moment where Prime Minister Justin Trudeau took opportunity to criticize opposition leader Pierre Poilievre for not getting security clearance. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, that was an explosive moment of testimony. It was really more partisan than I think a lot of people expected. Trudeau went hard after Poilievre for not getting that top-level security clearance. What he said is that he has access to the names of a number of parliamentarians, former parliamentarians, and or candidates for the Conservatives who were engaged in, at high risk of, or had clear intelligence around foreign interference. And he said he felt that the Conservative leader really needed to get the kind of top-level security clearance to be able to get this information himself and then try to use that to protect the integrity of the Conservative Party. So he really took a shot at Poilievre over this. And Poilievre's office responded very quickly with a statement of their own where they actually accused the Prime Minister of lying under oath at a federal inquiry, which is a very serious accusation, and said if he has this list of names, then he needs to release it to the public. But they assert that he will not because he doesn't have it. It's not real. So Poilievre, sort of defended himself and maintains that getting that kind of top-level security clearance amounts essentially to a gag order. So it seems like this is, not over between these two.
We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thanks so much for having me.
Sarah Ritchie, Ottawa News editor for the Canadian Press. For more news, actually, locally, let's go to Heather Wells right now for our headlines this morning.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg landlord wants to know why the city is fining victims of arson. Yesterday, City Council's Executive Policy Committee approved a proposal to lower fire service fees charged to vacant building owners when there is a fire. But the fees they voted for are still higher than city staff had recommended. We're going to hear from one property owner whose property caught fire 5 times before the city tore it down, and we'll hear how much she was fined. A holiday tradition in Winnipeg is in jeopardy. Operation Red Nose has lost its host charity. Now, the Safe Ride Holiday Service has a new host charity, but still needs to raise $100,000 by November 15th, or it may not run this year. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, we'll ask Mayor Scott Gillingham more about that story, about that property owner concerned about some fines in the city. In the next hour, he'll be here for our monthly interview. Also about rail yard relocation, that came up again this week, and of course, retail crime top of mind for people. So Mayor Gillingham will be here live at about 7:45. In addition, in the next hour of Information Radio, a new report has some troubling new stats about vulnerable patients in Canadian hospitals. We'll give you all the details that we have about that. And then at 7:40, a Winnipeg organization that supports women entrepreneurs turns 30. The anniversary is today. We're going to hear from a local business owner about how the group helped her. Stay tuned. 9 degrees in Winnipeg. The commute's moving fine.
Today on The Current.
I never cooked at home before, and now obviously I cook all the time. I cook with my kids.
I'm Rebecca Zandbergen. Canadian celebrity chef Chuck Hughes is known for his restaurant in Montreal. Cooking at home is very different, though, he says, and with his new book, he embraces that slower pace. Chef Chuck Hughes coming up on The Current.
The Current, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Pierre Poilievre says Justin Trudeau lied under oath at the public inquiry into foreign interference. The Conservative leader's statement came after Trudeau testified Wednesday. Trudeau said he has the names of Conservative politicians involved in or potentially vulnerable to foreign interference. Poilievre says Trudeau is just trying to distract from issues within his own caucus. The CBC's Janice McGregor has been following the inquiry and has the latest. And Janice, what stood out to you from Poilievre's statement?
Marcia, the Conservative leader insists that he can and does get briefed, even without security clearance. Pierre Poilievre's statement said his chief of staff, Ian Todd, is cleared to receive classified briefings, but at no time have they been told that any Conservative knowingly participated in foreign interference. But under cross-examination by the Conservative Party's lawyer at the inquiry yesterday, the Prime Minister explained why that's not good enough.
My supposition is that Mr. Todd is not the one who is responsible for determining what candidates can run or not for the Conservative Party of Canada, that it would be the leader.
Poilievre's statement also continues to insist that the CSIS Act allows the government to offer any Canadian information about the specific risks of foreign interference, and that a targeted threat reduction measure, for example, could be used to counter an urgent security risk. Former CSIS Director Richard Fadden was disputing that on Power and Politics last night.
In order for a threat reduction measure to operate successfully here, you would have to provide classified information to a reasonable level to get people to shift their behavior and their way of thinking. You can't give classified information to people if they don't have security clearances.
Poilievre's supporters have pointed out he's a former cabinet minister and a privy councillor, and he has clearances in that respect. But at the inquiry yesterday, we heard that wouldn't be sufficient for the sensitive information we're dealing with here.
The opposition wanted this inquiry to investigate accusations China's government interfered with members of the Liberal Party. But how much broader is this now?
Look, even before Justin Trudeau's testimony, we knew that this wasn't just a Liberal problem. We heard how opposition MPs have been targeted. We learned about interference activities in the last two Conservative leadership races. And we've heard that Indian government proxies have attempted to meddle in elections by financing candidates from 3 different parties. But the prospect of an election, perhaps even before this commission issues its recommendations, now hangs over everything that Justin Trudeau says and does. And he clearly wanted everyone listening yesterday to be concerned that something's off with the man that might be the next Prime Minister.
All right. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. The Assembly of First Nations is expected to hold a vote today on changing how children are treated on reserves. The federal government is offering close to $48 billion to reform the First Nations child welfare system. The AFN is holding a special Chiefs Assembly in Calgary this week to decide how to move forward. As Olivia Stefanovich reports, First Nations leaders are being urged to accept a proposed deal before the next federal election.
Can we count on a Conservative government to negotiate a better deal on First Nations child welfare?
The national chief of the Assembly of First Nations says she isn't sure. So Cindy Woodhouse-Neepanak is encouraging the AFN to accept the Liberals' offer before there could be a change in government.
And I'm optimistic that we can find some common ground. But we are not at the stage where I can stand before you as national chief and guarantee that we can get a better deal with a Conservative administration.
Ottawa is proposing $47.8 billion over the next decade, an enormous amount of money to tackle a generational problem. The underfunding of First Nations child and family services on reserves, a system that's led to more children torn from their homes than at the height of residential schools.
We want to get this right.
Victor Linklater is one of the many AFN delegates raising questions about the proposed deal. Struck with the AFN just this past summer, leaving chiefs with little time to go over the fine print.
It's 178 pages. The longer we have with it, our experts are going in there and finding loopholes that's going to hurt our people. And one of the greatest fears I have is that we are going to become the discriminators of our own children.
A consideration weighing heavily on First Nations leaders as they prepare to accept or reject the federal government's multi-billion-dollar offer. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky pitched his 5-point victory plan at the NATO defense ministers' meeting today.
We propose placing on Ukrainian land a deterrence package that would either force Russia to participate in real peace negotiations or allow for the destruction of their military targets.
NATO said Ukraine will become a member, but not during a war that could set the alliance directly into conflict with Russia. Zelensky argued NATO could issue an invitation now, even if members began at a later date. The alliance's new Secretary General, Mark Rutte, has said NATO's 32 members will have to consider the plan in detail. U.S. President Joe Biden is headed for Germany and a meeting with key Western allies. That includes the leaders of France and Britain, and how the group will be discussing the best way to support Ukraine is at the top of the agenda. Doctors in Ottawa say they're getting bogged down by the federal government's return to office mandate. That is especially as public servants come looking for doctors' notes for their absence. As Arthur White-Crummey reports, they say it is creating a mountain of paperwork and cutting into time for patient care.
I just get a whole bunch of forms from patients.
Those forms are coming from federal public servants. Dr. Alex Duong has seen dozens at his Ottawa family medicine practice. They're facing a government mandate pushing them back to the office 3 days a week, unless they get workplace accommodation. So they come to Dr. Duong looking for a doctor's note.
We're being asked to police these return to work policies for the federal government. It's not an effective use of our time. The public, I think, expects us to be doing family medicine.
Physicians across Ottawa are complaining about all that paperwork. Dr. Ruzba Matin sees 2 to 4 patients a week making those requests. It might not sound like much, but form after form follows each note. He calls them the bane of his existence.
We're getting completely bogged down with these requests and feeling completely overwhelmed by it.
Dr. Derek McClellan says the visits can also lead to tension in the exam room and undermine the doctor-patient relationship.
You end up in a conflict because we're positioned in the middle as kind of a gatekeeper for this thing that when there's no medical basis for it, we have no business being involved in this conversation. So it definitely creates some animosity.
The Treasury Board Secretariat says it doesn't collect information on the number of accommodation requests. Federal directives ask managers to work out requests informally if they can, but when barriers aren't clear, supporting documentation like medical notes may be required. Duong sees a simple solution.
The government can hire their own physicians.
Arthur White-Crummey, CBC News, Ottawa.
Italy is making it more difficult for couples to have a baby via surrogacy. The country's parliament has passed a law criminalizing couples going abroad for that reason. It fulfills an election promise made by Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and Italy's LGBTQ+ community says it's being unfairly targeted by the bill. Megan Williams has more from Rome.
Italian opposition MP Beatrice Lorenzin makes a last-minute plea in Italy's Senate on Wednesday to vote against a law that extends a 20-year-old surrogacy ban in Italy to those who go to countries such as Canada or the U.S. to have a child this way. Those who break the law face jail terms of up to 2 years and fines of as much as $1.5 million. The bill was a key initiative championed by Italian leader Giorgia Meloni and her far-right Brothers of Italy party, and passed the Senate by 84 to 58 votes. Meloni has denounced surrogacy as inhuman, comparing it to turning children into supermarket products, a view that mirrors the Vatican's stance. Outside, Italian LGBTQ+ groups expressed outrage, saying the bill is aimed at restricting their rights and negatively affects a country with one of the world's lowest birth rates. Green Party member Nicola Frattoiani said making this law universal would be farcical if it weren't so cruel. The LGBTQ+ advocacy group Rainbow Families says 90% of Italians who use surrogacy are heterosexual, meaning the ban will largely impact gay couples who can't hide their use of the practice. Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, good morning, everyone. It is Thursday. It's 9 degrees in Winnipeg. Nice clear sky out there, and we're going to have a pretty warm day. Thanks for joining us on Information Radio. We're live downtown in Winnipeg. This is CBC. I am Marcy Marcusa, and you're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. This hour on the show, a Winnipeg organization that supports women entrepreneurs in Manitoba is turning 30. Big anniversary. We're going to hear from one business owner who says WeMB has been essential for the growth of her business in our province. Stay tuned for that. In addition, rail yard relocation and retail crime are on the table today for our monthly interview with Mayor Scott Gillingham. He will be here at 7:45 in studio. Plus, we begin the hour with details of a new report that has some troubling new statistics about vulnerable patients in Canadian hospitals. Stay tuned. First, though, let's go to Heather Wells for news headlines this morning. Hi there. She's probably just coming into the studio there. There she comes.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I was writing a story and I got lost in it.
Busy out there. That's okay. That's what newsrooms are like. So what are we leading with this morning, Heather?
Well, 2 Winnipeg teens who were caught stealing on camera have confessed and apologized after a social media shaming happened last week at a beer vendor attached to the Four Crowns restaurant and bar on McPhillips. The owner there says her surveillance camera captured the 2 stealing booze, and so instead of calling police, he decided to put their photos on social media. We'll hear what happened after that. As well, people in Winnipeg's Sikh community are concerned as Canada-India tensions rise and put a renewed focus on a 2023 homicide in Winnipeg. We'll hear that story in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Heather Wells in our newsroom this morning. All right, let's get into this forecast. Abby, what do we know?
We're seeing a range of temperatures across board from chilly in the north to warmer temperatures down south. 7 in Winnipeg at this time. We should see mainly sunny skies later with some cloud cover developing this afternoon. Then some breezy conditions will tag along. We'll see the temperatures for this part of the province warm up to 19 degrees. And then for tonight, some partly cloudy conditions will roll in, and we do have a chance of showers before tomorrow morning. Temperatures will be dropping to about 7 degrees. In other regions, we're seeing cloudy conditions in Thompson and more like fog in Churchill at this point. Winnipeg 7, Brandon 1, Dauphin 0, Gimli, Steinbach, Maurice all hovering around 8 degrees at this time, and the regions will be warming up close to 20s for today. So I'll just say enjoy the mild temperatures we're enjoying, because that's going to be saying goodbye very soon.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, the commute.
Yeah, there's some construction on Dunkirk. So actually all the southbound lanes of Dunkirk between Kingston Row and Fermor are actually going to be closed today for street construction. It started at 4 a.m. They are going to be opening for this morning rush hour, but then closed again. So just heads up, you'll be able to go through there during the rush hour kind of period. But then if you are driving throughout the day, you might not be able to go southbound on Dunkirk between Kingston Row and Fermor. Also heads up to folks in Waverly West that starting tonight at 8 p.m., the city is going to be starting to install the modular Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service Station there. So that actually means that Eaglewood Drive from Skyline Drive to the Element on Eaglewood Crescent at the entrance will be closed starting tonight, 8 p.m. until Saturday at 8 p.m. And there's also going to be no parking signs along Eaglewood Drive from Waverly to Skyline Drive. If you see anything going on out there right now, give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Well, a new report does reveal some disturbing incidents playing out in Canadian hospitals. Now, everything from foreign objects left in patients to post-surgical infections. Over the last year, a patient was harmed in 1 of every 17 hospital stays. And what is more, the report reveals that specific patients were more vulnerable to the incidents. To learn about the details, the Canadian Institute for Health Information, CIHI, put out this report, and Jeff Hines is Manager of Population Health with the Institute. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So, first of all, what is defined as, how does the report define a harmful incident? What does that mean?
Yeah, so This is a healthcare indicator that tracks unintended harms that patients experience during hospital stays. And so by hospital stay, I mean that's an overnight stay in hospital. Doesn't include an ED or emergency department visit. And the harms that patients may experience are significant enough that they're going to require additional treatment, and it may even prolong their hospital stay. And so as you identified, medication errors, patient falls, surgical site infections, and trauma during childbirth are just a number of the examples.
And there's certain patient populations that were more vulnerable to this happening to them. Can you tell me? What you found there?
Sure. So the second product that we released, apart from the update of the national data, was we wanted to look at the risk of experiencing unintended harm across equity-seeking or equity-deserving populations. So as we learned through COVID-19, some populations were disproportionately burdened. And this information is really important for the health system to be aware of so that they can target services to those populations. So to do this work, we had to link two large data sets, the 2016 census, so the census of the population in Canada, and healthcare data from 2016 to 2018. And so what our analysis revealed was that the likelihood of experiencing harm in hospital is 30% higher for Canadians who speak a language other than French or English. And it was 20% higher for Canadians with less than a high school education. Now, both populations may have challenges experiencing or communicating with healthcare providers, and we know that communication is one of, if not the main cause of unintended harm in Canada.
Tell me a little bit more about that, because I remember last year we were up in St. Teresa Point in Manitoba, which is a remote fly-in community, and the population's largely Indigenous. And they were talking about an example of this, a patient in hospital who was trying to express in his own language what he needed. And the gap was so huge that he was about to get the wrong care until it was a counselor, actually an area counselor from that community that stepped in to help. And it changed everything about the care he received. So can you elaborate a bit on, what makes patients more vulnerable?
Well, I mean, if you're asked to communicate and try to understand someone who's providing care to you in a language that isn't your mother tongue, that can be very challenging, right? And so, our patients and provider communication, are they, communicating information about background, past care, recent history or medications? And you need to understand this in a very clear and coherent fashion. If not, that introduces risk, right? And so during anybody's hospital stay, patients will interact with many different providers, many different times. And each of those interactions kind of can increase the risk of experiencing harm. And so I think, what we're trying to communicate with our analysis is that, we need to think of patient safety not just as a healthcare issue, but it's as an issue of health equity. And so we need to really understand these issues from the perspective of the entire patient, right? So what are some of the barriers that may hold them back from being able to access the right care at the right time?
Can we go back to the statistics in the report for a moment? How you describe some of the nature of what can happen here. In every 17 hospital stays, your report says there's a disturbing incidence. How often does it result in a patient dying?
Well, I think, as you said, one patient out of every 17 that are hospitalized in Canada is going to experience some form of harm, right? And so our data from 2023, 2024, there were almost 2.5 million hospital stays in Canada. So that works out to be about 150,000 incidents of unintended harm. Sadly, 15% or about 22% of those harmful events may result in patient death.
Tell me a little bit more about Manitoba. I know you don't have province-specific data, but I wonder how confident you are that this is happening across the country and including, in our province.
Yeah, so the data we released is really limited to kind of national data currently. And for a lot of indicators that we do put out, I think it's really important to compare, what we call health system performance. There's lots to learn from other health systems and the way they perform. I would say in this case, this indicator is really not designed for comparisons across provinces and territories. It's really designed for organizations and systems to identify, what their patient safety improvement priorities are. They need to track progress over time to ensure what they're doing is working. Now, what I can say about Manitoba and other provinces is that the pattern that we see with language and education, that we see that at national levels, it's pretty consistent as well across the provinces and territories.
Jeff, anything to add that I haven't highlighted out of the report?
Perhaps maybe I think, there's one thing that I think is, also relevant is the fact that, the average cost of a hospital stay, so any typical stay in Canada is about $9,000. And I think what we identified was that for a patient who experiences a harmful event and who's going to need additional treatment and a prolonged stay, it costs more than 4 times as much to treat that patient. So that's over $42,000 a hospital stay. And so we think this is obviously a really relevant issue for the health system.
Appreciate having you on with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
That's Jeff Hines, Manager of Population Health at the Canadian Institute for Health Information, or CIHI, with their new report out today.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
On the noon call-in today, we are going to be talking about and hoping that you'll weigh in on something that has to do with healthcare. This is a bit of good news out of a report. A report out says there's been a 75% decrease in the death rate from heart disease and stroke over the past 70 years. But heart and stroke related deaths, of course, are still the second leading cause of death in this country. So the question on Radio Noon for the call-in today is, how has your life been touched by heart disease or stroke? And how have you made changes in your life to try to become more heart healthy? So they'll give more information about where this data comes from. And the call-in guest is Dr. Patrice Lindsay, who's a leading expert in best stroke practices. So guest host Chloe Friesen is going to be hosting the conversation between 12:30 and 1 right here on Radio Noon. In a few minutes, we've got the rundown on morning sports. I don't know about you. I've just been watching so much baseball. I can't get enough. Last night, Shohei Ohtani, can tell I'm cheering for the Dodgers, finally hit a home run in that series. So we're going to hear more about that and all the other games going on. Also talk more about what's been happening in the WNBA finals. That wrapped up last night. But first, a little bit of music. If you're a Canadian music fan of a certain age, you're going to maybe remember Sean Jones from his time in the Juno-winning group In Essence. He's back though with a new track. It channels kind of the sounds of 90s hip hop. See what you think. It features fellow Torontonian John Orpheus. This tune's called If It Isn't Love.
Sean Jones in it. Yeah. I told her love was a game with cards I wasn't dealing. I said my heart was too cold to ever catch a feeling. Call me Picasso, I know the art of up and leaving, but she told me this was a journey, so don't stop believing. Why is our love so complicated? Break up, make up, drive ourselves crazy. 1 minute we're vexed, the next elated. If this is love, is it worth saving? But we push on through the fog and the haze. Are we really in love or just stuck in the maze? I guess some lessons are blessings and some lessons keep us stressing. Maybe this thing is a blessing, or will it break our hearts? Yeah. Been sitting here all alone and I'm just trying to figure it out. Why my heart keeps coming back when you just fill me with doubt. Every time you leave, my heart aches. But when you're here with me, my heart starts to break. Yeah. Oh. You can't love what you can't hold. Never thought I would let her in. Now it's too late, maybe it's fate. This is somewhere I've never been. If it isn't love, why do I feel this way? Why do you stay on my mind? And if it isn't love, why does it hurt so bad? Make me feel so sad inside. If it isn't love, oh, yeah. Oh, late night, late fights, we make up, make love, then argue. Then the minute you leave, goddamn, I'm lost in thoughts of you. When you hold me close, it all fades away, and I forget the pain for another day. Yeah. Oh, you can't love what you can't hold. Never thought I would let her in. Now it's too late, maybe it's fate. This is somewhere I've never been. If it isn't love, why do I feel this way? Why do you ecstasy. Destiny, ain't love set me free. You're my sweetness, you're my ecstasy. I wanna be down till we rest in peace. Does it hurt so bad? Make me feel so sad inside.
You grooving along with us, Scott Regier?
Just a tiny bit cool in the gang. Yeah, I was. The upper body, above the desk dance.
Right? Yeah, Montel
Where
Jordan.
my real moves are going on is below the desk with my fancy foot moves, but you can't see that.
Our control room had some good moves, actually, today. Me and Abby are digging this a lot, actually.
Yeah.
So this does totally nod back to the 90s, right? But this is new music. This is Sean Jones, used to be in the group In Essence in the 90s, but this features fellow Torontonian John Orpheus, and the tune is If It Isn't Love.
Very nice.
Cool, eh?
Very nice.
Yeah. All right, let's get to sports here. Let's start with basketball. There was a dramatic finish to last night's game in the WNBA.
Was there ever? Things, Marcy, were tied between Minnesota and New York with 1 second left in regulation time, and the Liberty's star guard, Sabrina Ionescu, with the ball. Now, to be clear, Ionescu, Marcy, was not very close to her opponent's basket. In fact, one of her feet was very near the center court logo when...
Ionescu will heave and hit! And hit! Sabrina Ionescu with the biggest shot in Liberty history!
It was a fantastic shot, a swish that has Ionescu's New York Liberty one way away from its first ever title. The city might be the spiritual home of the sport, Marcy, but its WNBA team has never, in 5 previous appearances in the finals, by the way, had a series lead as they do now. Ionescu was asked what gives her such chutzpah in the biggest moments.
I visualize a lot when I'm practicing in the off season, the night before a game, the day of a game. Like, I'm always visualizing different scenarios and putting myself in tough situations. Like, obviously I didn't play my best tonight, but finding a way to continue to stick with it. And I feel like that's been a big growth for me, whether the ball's going in or not. But yeah, definitely the biggest shot of my career, and hopefully not the last.
Ionescu and her teammates can win the championship Friday in Minnesota, Marcy, although personally I kind of hope they don't. And I say that because a loss would mean a winner-take-all matchup back in New York on Sunday night. The WNBA already, in part because of the Uber rookie Caitlin Clark's enjoyed unprecedented growth this season. And imagine an all-or-nothing championship tilt Sunday in Brooklyn with the likes of Spike Lee, Jason Sudeikis, and Alicia Keys all watching courtside. That would be something.
Billie Jean King's probably smiling about all of this, but she was busy with another important matter on Wednesday.
She was. She celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Women's Sport Foundation. Nearly 100 female athletes attended the awards dinner last night celebrating that milestone, and King herself, who of course is a tireless advocate for equal pay and more investment in women's sport. Incredible to think that King started this foundation back in the 70s with a $5,000 check. Ahead of yesterday's celebration, King was asked to light up the Empire State Building, but also took time to explain how far that original check has gone.
I was hoping, because $5,000 isn't that much, that it could start something big. So since then, the foundation, we've given out over $100 million, so that $5,000 check became a $100 million plus, and we're going to keep going and obviously have more, so we fight for equality and help society.
The next milestone for the now 80-year-old King will be receiving the Congressional Gold Medal, one of the U.S.'s highest civilian honors for individuals whose achievements have made a lasting impact in their field. I think she qualifies.
You don't say. Yeah, right. All right, let's talk baseball. Anybody that's trying to find me or has been trying to find me, I'm just sitting in front of the television watching all these games. I can't get enough. And last night, the Dodgers, it looks like they're going to, they're edging closer to getting into the World Series with a shutout.
Yeah, 8-0 shutout of the Mets that gives the Dodgers a 2-1 lead in the NLCS. Shohei Ohtani, the home run that salted things away. He's been terrible when there haven't been runners on base, Marcy.
Right? Yeah, it's like he needs the pressure.
Yeah. I could not believe this stat when I saw it this morning. With runners on base, Shohei, 17 of his past 20 plate appearances have resulted in hits. That's unfathomable.
Yeah.
But it is Shohei, so I guess it is fathomable. So Mets lead there, and we have Guardians trying to stay alive against the Yankees later tonight.
Lots of games going on. All right, thanks a lot, Scott.
You betcha.
Scott Regehr with Morning Sports. He joins us every morning at 7:25 on InfoRad. Coming up, we're going to celebrate a special anniversary right after the news by talking to a local woman entrepreneur who says that WeMB was essential for the growth of her business. WeMB is formerly the Manitoba Women's Enterprise Centre, and it's celebrating 30 years today. So stay tuned. That's after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 9 degrees at Winnipeg's airport. That's 10 degrees. We're 10 degrees warmer than seasonal. The normal high is 9. Today, our high is going to be 19. Still really windy in Winnipeg today. Some members of Winnipeg's Sikh community are concerned about diplomatic tensions between Canada and India. It comes as police in Canada investigate what they allege is the involvement of agents of the Indian government in violence on the Canadian soil. And that includes what sources tell CBC News is a possible link between 3 men accused in the killing of a Sikh separatist activist in BC and a homicide last year in Winnipeg. 39-year-old Sukhdev Singh Gill was found dead in a home in the northwest part of Winnipeg in September 2023. Indirjit Singh Brar lives nearby, and he's worried.
The last year there was an incident happened in my community, and we were very concerned about that. It was like early morning when this happened, and the kids were going to the school at the time. And I don't want this thing to happen in this community.
Winnipeg police say they won't comment on Gill's homicide because their investigation is ongoing. No arrests have been made. 2 Winnipeg teens caught stealing on camera have confessed and apologized after a social media shaming. It happened last week at the beer vendor attached to Four Crowns Restaurant and Bar on McPhillips. Owner Ravi Rambaran says his surveillance camera captured 2 youths stealing booze. Well, rather than calling police, he decided to post their photos on social media. The 2 culprits, aged 14 and 15, soon came forward.
The 2 boys reached out to us, and we got together, we talked to them, and it was fantastic. Turns out they're not seasoned criminals at all. They're not seasoned shoplifters, and that they were very sorry for their actions, and they are well known in the community, so they didn't want that reputation, and they want to work hard to change it.
Rambaran says the 2 teens have offered to pay for what they stole by volunteering at his business. He says he's also offered them a chance to work for him in the future. A Winnipeg landlord says she is glad the city is reconsidering after she was fined more than $100,000. Yesterday, City Council's Executive Policy Committee approved a proposal to lower fire service fees charged to the owners of vacant buildings. But the fees they voted for are still higher than city staff had recommended. Maria Suzuki owned an Elgin Avenue property that caught fire 5 times before the city tore it down. She was fined $138,000. She says she understands why a neglectful landlord would face the fines. But she says she tried to protect her property.
I did everything I can. I boarded up. I did renovate the property. I tried to do everything, and then still got, some unwanted people or person, set the fire on my property.
Suzuki says she stopped paying the fine because she wasn't getting answers from the city. An Israeli strike on a school sheltering displaced people in northern Gaza has killed at least 15 people. Gaza's health ministry says 5 children are among the dead. The Israeli military says the strike targeted dozens of Hamas and Islamic Jihad militants who had gathered at that school. Local officials say Israel's offensive in Gaza following the deadly October 7th, 2023 Hamas attack has killed more than 42,000 Palestinians. The fighting spilling into Lebanon, where Israel's military and the Hezbollah militant group have been fighting almost daily since last fall. Now, Ottawa says Palestinians who fled Gaza will receive financial aid to help their transition once they arrive in Canada. Immigration Minister Mark Miller says the federal government will also offer health coverage for 3 months, as well as language training and free study and work permits. The Assembly of First Nations meeting in Calgary is expected to vote today on whether to accept a $47 billion child welfare settlement offered by the federal government. AFN National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Niebenak is urging the chiefs to accept this deal. She says there's no guarantee any future governments will match the offer.
I'm optimistic that we can find some common ground. But we are not at the stage where I can stand before you as National Chief and guarantee that we can get a better deal with a Conservative administration.
The settlement addresses the chronic underfunding that First Nations Child and Family Services have faced over the generations. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. A holiday tradition in Winnipeg is in jeopardy. Operation Red Nose has lost its host charity, Manta Swim Club. It ran the Safe Ride service in Winnipeg for nearly 30 years as a fundraiser. Elisha Dacey at Operation Red Nose says a brand new charity has since stepped in, but everyone now faces a steep learning curve.
The new charity is Winnipeg Kids Foundation, and they support youth with scholarships and sports programs. But there's a lot that we are learning, and when the old charity decided to go, they took a lot of their assets with them, so we're trying to replace a lot of things.
Dacey says they need to cover the cost for things like new phones and gas. She says Operation Red Nose has to raise $100,000 by November 15th, or it may not run this year. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather Wells.
You're welcome.
All right, it's time for the regional forecast from CBC Manitoba. Here is Abby Adiemi.
Across the province, we're going to see varying temperatures from cool and chilly conditions in the north to warmer temperatures down south. Winnipeg at 7 at this time. It will be lovely. Expect lots of sunshine in the forecast. Some clouds will roll in later in the afternoon, then become windy. Expect temperatures to climb to around 19. Tonight will be partly cloudy. There's a slight chance of showers in the forecast that will roll into tomorrow morning. Up north, mostly cloudy and a mix of sun and clouds in the forecast. A slight chance of showers also cited. 6 in Thompson, 0 in Churchill. Down south, we're seeing 1 in Brandon and 0 in Dauphin. Gimli, Steinbach, Morris all hovering near 8 degrees at this point, and we'll be seeing highs between 16 and 21 for the southern region. Lovely day ahead. Expect sunshine and highs in the 20s for the south.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Good day for a bike ride in, I'm guessing, Corey.
Oh, gorgeous. Yeah, a bit windy, but not too cold. I can take the wind, but when it just is like
in your
face sting, no fun. Zero fun at all.
Can I commute otherwise?
Yeah, I just want to look ahead for some folks in Waverly West area. So the city's going to be putting in a modular Winnipeg fire paramedic service station starting tonight at 8 p.m. So that means that all the southbound lanes of Eaglewood Drive from Skyline to the Element on the Eaglewood complex entrance is going to be closed starting tonight at 8 p.m. until October 19th. So that's Saturday at 8 p.m. They're hoping it may end earlier, but that's as long as it'll take to complete that work, they say. Also, there's going to be no parking along Eaglewood Drive from Waverly to Skyline Drive as well. So just heads up there. That's really the only major issue you might want to keep an eye out in the future. But if you see something going on right now, it seems like things are going okay. But if you see something, you're walking, biking, driving, give me a call. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Well, up next on the show, for 30 years, women with dreams of owning their own businesses have had a helping hand. In 1994, the Manitoba Women's Enterprise Centre opened up with help from federal financing. Now, today, that organization, which is now called WeMB, will celebrate its 30th anniversary. They've got a special event coming up this evening at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. WeMB offers training, advice, and financial help for entrepreneurs like business owner Pina Romolo, who's our next guest. She's the owner and CEO of Piccola Cucina, a local company that sells gluten-free foods. And in fact, I spoke with her earlier this morning.
Hi, good morning.
So how did WeMB help you in your journey along the way with your business?
Yeah, so, our business, we go back to 2012 with WeMB, and we started with the center in 2012, like I said, with a program called My Gold Mine, which was I don't think it exists anymore, but it was a program designed to help women-owned businesses understand the financial side of the business. So what were cost of goods sold, margins, how to read financial statements and balance sheets, as well as cash flow management. So this was very instrumental in my learning journey as an entrepreneur. So that's how I started with the center. And then I worked very closely with my first advisor, Alana, who is actually still part of the team. And she was just a sounding board and supporter, and validated me and my insecurities, and just saying, this is normal, and these are things that because it's very lonely and hard being an entrepreneur sometimes. And so the center was there to help support my thoughts and ideas and validate some of the things that I was maybe questioning and that sort of thing.
What's it been like watching things change over the years, Pina, in terms of women in entrepreneurship in Manitoba? Because there's been so much growth. I mean, when you started, I remember you were in here with your cookies. We were talking about the amaretti and eating them, and watching you all these years later find success with multiple products. How much does the community help each other along the way as businesses like yours grow?
Yeah, I mean, being able to meet a business owner where they're at is really important. And I think that's what the center does. The community is such a huge part of being in business. It's every stage, every level that you we've been in business over 15 years now, but you keep growing and evolving, and you need different supports at each level. And I think the center does a really good job of meeting you where you need to be. They have things for startups and, right at the beginning of your journey all the way, in helping businesses like myself and providing opportunities. So things like, ministerial discussions, where I would never have been a part of those kinds of conversations to help influence things as we go forward. So we leave it better than we started. Yeah.
For those that don't know your business, can you share a bit about why you started it and the range of products that you now make and sell?
Absolutely. So we're a women-owned Canadian manufacturer. We're located here in Winnipeg. We were founded in 2009 as a manufacturer of single-line almond-based products, and we've now also evolved to a producer of allergy-friendly products, which include, as you mentioned, our macaroons, almond pie shells, almond flour tortillas, as well as pizzas, pizza crusts, and superfood desserts. So these latter three were actually as a result of an acquisition of a business last year, Judy G Foods out of Calgary. And so our products are available across Canada through Safeway, Sobeys, Costco online, and then, of course, through some local stores like Vita Health here in Winnipeg.
Congrats on all that success over the years.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
What special challenges do women face as entrepreneurs, would you say?
Yeah, it's okay to go into debt to grow your business. And that was told to me often. And until I became comfortable with that, it was certainly a turning point in my own business. It's really hard to think about taking on debt to grow, but you really need it in order to take your business to the next level. And so the center was really, I've been a loan client of theirs since very early on as well. And so, you just learn how to manage your cash and know that it's okay to do, good debt is okay for a business.
What advice would you give to a woman maybe listening who wants to get into business in Manitoba? Maybe they're not sure how to start, or they have, they feel like they've got imposter syndrome, that they can't possibly be an entrepreneur.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Reach out to the women's entrepreneurs. There's so many organizations. We're very lucky here in Manitoba that are there to support businesses wherever you are, whether, like myself, a food manufacturer. We have an association, Food and Beverage Manitoba, that helps food businesses. But, the center is a really good place to start and build that community around you. Good lawyer, good accountant, those services that are really key, and surround yourself with people that know things that you don't know so that they can help you on your learning journey.
You've got something special to mention before we go this morning that relates to the anniversary, I think, right?
Yeah, just to commemorate the anniversary of Women's Enterprise Center, we have a promo code that we'd like to share. So on piccolacucina.com, you can enter the promo code WEMB. Until the end of October, we're offering 15% off all of our products.
Thank you so much for being with us this morning, Pina, and enjoy commemorating this special anniversary for WeMB. Appreciate you sharing how they impacted and helped you along your business journey.
Thank you so much for the time this morning. Have a good day.
I spoke to Pina Romolo, in fact, at 6 this morning. She's the owner and CEO of Piccola Cucina. Today, WeMB will celebrate their 30th anniversary of helping women entrepreneurs in our province. They're having an event at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. It's going on this evening from 5 to 9. It's 7:45 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcus, and thanks for joining us this Thursday morning. It's partly cloudy out there, 7 degrees. Our high is 19, which is a full 10 degrees above our seasonal average, so enjoy it today. Make some plans. It's going to be sunny, a little bit windy, though. Winds south 40 to 60 in Winnipeg. Right now in Brandon, mainly clear, a little bit cooler, 1 degree, but you'll also head for 19 today. And in Thompson, mostly cloudy and 6 degrees. Your daytime high today is 11. Well, it is time for our monthly interview with Mayor Scott Gillingham, who is in studio. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Marcy.
So let's start actually with something in the news this morning. I know you did respond to this yesterday, but this new provincial legislation that's going to make it tougher to overrule city land use decisions. So for the sake of our listeners who might have missed the story, what it basically means is if you want to trigger a hearing about something that's being developed, you before needed 25 signatures in the city of Winnipeg, that is, and now that increases to 300 signatures. I know that you've commented that this could speed up developments that are important developments and housing developments in some cases as well. Is that the main reason why you're applauding this?
I am. Currently, before this legislation, yes, 25 signatures was all that was needed to take a decision that council had made to take that to the municipal board. That's a very low threshold. And so there were many projects that council had approved that the public, through 25 signatures, took to the municipal board. What that did is it really slowed things down because the municipal board then has this lineup of hearings and appeals that they need to hear. And in the meantime, we need development to happen. We need more housing. And so this is a good decision, I believe, by the province of Manitoba, and I really support them changing the threshold from 25 to 300 signatures. So the public will still have the opportunity to appeal. They just need 300 signatures to get something to the municipal board instead of 25.
Of course, there's multiple perspectives on this. So to look at it from the other point of view, there may be someone listening saying, but in my block of Winnipeg, this development's going to affect me and my neighbors. There are 25 of us. So they may feel it's unfair, that they need 300 signatures. Now they may be thinking, now what do I do? Do I have to campaign sort of street to street to street if I have a concern about something? What would you say to that concern?
In some cases, yes, people are going to need to go further to get more signatures. But for example, when I was a city councillor in my last term, there was a project with about 150 to close to 200 units that were proposed. I believed it was a very good project. That project was overturned by the municipal board, and it was 25, 30 people that overturned that project. And at the time, there was no requirement for those people to live in the area either. And so there's still an appeal process. Things can still go to the municipal board. It just takes more signatures to get there.
I want to read you something here. This is on another story. This is a quote. The quote is, a working group is set to start as early as next month to plan to move rail lines out of the city of Winnipeg. The group, which will include Canadian Pacific Railway and Canadian national officials, will put together a detailed study to submit to federal officials, as is required under federal transport laws. End quote. That was from one of our CBC reports 10 years ago. This is something we've been studying since the 60s. I wonder why you support studying relocation of the rail yards at Henry and Higgins, which was announced this week yet again. And I think my point with that is we have all of this data already. If this is something that's desired, should we not be at a different point in the process?
You would think so. And that's a fair point because you're right, Marcy. Rail relocation in Winnipeg has been studied many times and for years. What we need now, though, is we need current information. We need current costs. We need also to understand the impact on jobs, the impact on rail operations. But I'm really hoping what can happen with this study is that we could look at some incremental steps, some of what it may be possible in the short term. For example, in the Winnipeg's north end, there's a rail line that runs 9 kilometers. It crosses. There's 30 crossings in residential streets, and it's only the city of Winnipeg is the only one that uses it. And so, is that a possibility? Can we look at some of these spur lines that are underutilized or lines that are not well used? Can we start there? Can those be transformed into places where housing or active transportation pathways could be put in place? So we're really looking at what is the art of the possible here and what could be done, and can we look at some incremental steps?
Have we looked before? I know in the past when we've reported on this, and we've looked at it in totality because you're talking about needing multiple layers of approvals. There's remediation of the land afterward. There's funding agreements. But have we looked before at what you're talking about at sort of could we start smaller to get things moving more quickly to free up some of the land?
I don't know the answer to that. That obviously is a good question. I don't know whether we have or not. I know that Dr. Axworthy's study will take at least 2 years. I think it'll be a comprehensive study. Looking forward to that. But as I said, I'm hoping that within that study, there are opportunities for incremental steps where we could start small.
Does this discussion about the rail yards coming up again and the study coming up again signal that there's no future for the Arlington Bridge?
No, because as I said, Dr. Axworthy's study is going to take at least 2 years. And then if it did say move forward and let's say, the federal government and the provincial government and the rail companies all wanted to move the yards, in the north end, that would take years and years and years. You mentioned remediation would be one of the things that would have to be done. So council is going to have to make a decision on the Arlington Bridge, sooner than 2 to 3 years from now. So those really at this point are not connected.
Same area, of course, and the Arlington connects north and south. So natural question flowing out of it. When do you expect we'll have an answer on Arlington? Because I think it was February where we were hoping to have an answer to how much it would cost and what the next steps are. And it remains closed. Is it closed another winter then, I guess?
It will be closed another winter. We should, as a council, be getting the information we've been looking for within the next few months here on the Arlington Bridge report.
I want to move to some concerns about Winnipeg's West End neighborhood, actually. We have a clip to play for you here. This is around Arlington and Ellis specifically. CBC reported this week in that immediate area, 3 businesses recently closed. Have a listen to what one area resident told our reporter Jim Agapito about it.
Andre Crate.
Can you tell me what you do in the area?
So I do work at a community center in the area, and I'm part of the employment program. So we help people find employment. We have community drop-in. We give out harm reduction. We have a really good greening team, housing grant team, everything like that. So.
You look at the 3 businesses around Arlington and Ellis. They've all closed. How is that impacting the area?
It's kind of making it look like a very desolate area. Like 7-Eleven was a lot of business for people. So I think it's making people a little bit more withdrawn and kind of recluse. Doesn't really aesthetically pleasing for the neighborhood. It kind of looks run down and not taken care of. I've lived here for 17 years, so I think it's just nice to have businesses in the West End, employ people, have that opportunity to keep the neighborhood thriving.
So you can hear a story like this, and these might seem like small closures, but of course we know there's other 7-Eleven stores that are closing in Winnipeg. We had a list of actually businesses yesterday on the air that were closing, some of those due to retail crime specifically. But what are you most worried about regarding the situation plaguing many of our neighborhoods? And when you hear a resident saying it, makes you feel bad about where you live.
Yeah, no, I feel for that resident and any resident who's living in areas that are being described here, because when you lose a business in an area, it is a loss to the community, without a doubt. But, one of the things that I would mention as well is the retail crime initiative that has been launched, where we have the police working through provincial funding, has been showing progress. It has made a difference. You talk to retail merchants and outlets, they appreciate the difference it has made. In fact, the Retail Council of Canada locally is using Winnipeg's model right now all across Canada and is touting it as something that is working. Sometimes it's not working fast enough, as in the case probably that the clip we just played. I know, but I talked, for example, to Munther Eid not that long ago, within the last couple of weeks, and he talked about the difference, the positive difference of
grocery
retail
store
initiative.
Owner, yeah.
Grocery store owner, thank you. Yeah, a food fair. It's made a positive difference in his community. But 7-Eleven specifically, you'd have to talk to 7-Eleven as to all the reasons that they may be closing their stores. I note that for sure it could be theft. I'm not saying it's not.
Yeah.
I do note that 7-Eleven, I think, is closing 400 stores across North America right now as well, though.
Can we do something to strengthen initiatives, or what can the city do to help smaller businesses? That may be going through closures or having challenge specifically. Yesterday on the Retail Theft Initiative, we crunched the numbers for City of Winnipeg Police coming out to businesses and companies. And it was really noticeable that some larger groups, like Superstore was the example, can afford the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they have to spend on security and having a police officer there. Some smaller, mom and pop shops that are critical to these neighborhoods like we're hearing about, they can't afford that. So what initiatives could we put in place at that level to help those businesses stay safe and stay open?
Well, first of all, the retail crime initiative is only temporary. I'd like to see it extended. I'd like to see it made permanent. The key to that is going to be, frankly, a new funding model for the city of Winnipeg from the province of Manitoba, because as a city of Winnipeg, we can and we should be taking policing on ourselves. Right now, the province is funding overtime for this retail crime initiative, and it's overtime for police, but it's temporary. We need to make it permanent so that the smaller stores you're talking about that can't afford to hire special duty officers get police and get to foot patrol in their community. And the foot patrol, which is part of the retail crime initiative, has been very, very important.
It's like Osborne Village got.
Osborne Village, the downtown, it's made a big difference as well, because those officers have the opportunity to build relationship with those store owners. So I'd like to see it made permanent, but to do that, I think it's really about a new funding model with the province of Manitoba for the city of Winnipeg.
I have a story out of the news I want to ask you about, and then a quick snapper. So let's do the snapper first. How close are we to announcing the new police chief?
Getting closer. I'm on the police board, and we're through. We're into the interview process. We'll be starting that pretty soon. But as a police, as mayor, I want to see a police chief who is a great collaborator with the province and tackles some of these issues like retail crime.
This month? Next month? Do you think?
I don't have a timeline on it. Yeah.
Okay. The issue in the news is the Winnipeg landlord that is talking about the reconsideration of the city around these fines, although they're still going up. If you own a property that has the firefighters have had to come out to and fight. Why is it fair if a landlord has proven and shown steps that they have boarded up to try to protect their property that they should have to foot the bill for fire coming out?
There are some property owners who are doing work. On their vacant and derelict buildings, but there are some, frankly, that have been sitting on vacant derelict buildings for a long time, and that's neighborhood blight. We need a combination of incentivizing those property owners to get their properties done, but then we also need to have penalties because those areas, those properties that continually are targeted for fire, that's a risk to the firefighters, it's a risk to the community, it's neighborhood blight. So we need a combination of that. A positive incentive, make it easier for people to develop. But on the other hand, when they just sit on their property and it's boarded up for months, years on end in some cases, and there's fires, I still believe we need penalties on those fires, because there's a cost to the city of Winnipeg. And final comment is this: is if I own a piece of property and I have it boarded up for years on end, it shouldn't be fair, Marcy, that you as a taxpayer have to keep paying for the firefighters to show up and fight the fire of my property because I'm doing nothing with it.
You dressing up for Halloween this year?
I am not, but I will be handing out candy.
What are you going to hand out?
We hand out.
Do they know when they come to your house? Do they we're at the mayor's house? Do they know that?
Some of the neighbors do, I think, but some they're kids. They just want the candy. They don't. I don't think they care if it's the mayor or anyone else. But yeah, we look forward to it. It's fun.
Cut you off there. What are you handing out?
Chocolate bars.
Chocolate, yeah. We'll have to see this year. My street has changed. So I think I've got more kids in the street we'll have to hand out as well. Thank you for being here. We'll talk to you next month.
Thank you.
Of course, we'll hear from the mayor before then, but our regular monthly interview will be coming up next month. Scott Gillingham has been in studio with us live on CBC. It is 3 minutes to 8 o'clock, and Heather Wells is here with headlines.
Good morning. Well, 2 Winnipeg teens caught stealing on camera have confessed and apologized after a social media shaming. It happened last week at the beer vendor attached to Four Crowns Restaurant and Bar on McPhillips. The owner there says his surveillance camera captured the youth stealing booze, and rather than calling police, he decided to post their photos on social media. We'll tell you what happened after that. And a holiday tradition in Winnipeg is in jeopardy. Operation Red Nose has lost its host charity. The Safe Ride Holiday Service has a new charity now, but still needs to raise $100,000 by November 15th, or it may not run this year. I'll be back with Manitoba News at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
In Winnipeg, 7 degrees, heading for 19. Going to be windy and sunny. In traffic, call us if there's an issue, 788-3093. We did hear Dunkirk southbound between Kingston Row and Fermor. You're going to be open during the rush hour. We just want to remind you that that's going to be closed after rush hour for some work that they're doing there. And there could be issues in Waverly West, Eaglewood Drive, construction there from Skyline Drive to The Element. Coming up, part 2 of our feature interview with Chief Justice Glenn Joyal, looking at the justice system in Manitoba.
today on Q with Tom Power.
Florence Pugh has become one of the biggest movie stars in the world right now. I mean, she can take on whatever role she wants. So why is her latest film a small movie about a couple meeting and having a baby in a gas station? Florence Pugh will be here to tell you all about it.
I ran you over. Sorry.
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Rebecca Zandbergen. Canadian celebrity chef Chuck Hughes is known for his restaurant in Montreal. Cooking at home is very different, though, he says, and with his new book, he embraces that slower pace. Chef Chuck Hughes coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. NATO defense ministers are gathered in Brussels for 2 days of meetings. A key thing on the agenda, the crisis in Ukraine. While the alliance is already providing tens of billions of dollars in military aid, there is pressure on NATO to do more. Dominic Felitis reports.
Canada's Bill Blair is among NATO defence ministers attending today's meeting.
Good to see you.
The alliance's new Secretary-General, Mark Rutte, is chairing the two-day event, his first NATO ministerial meeting since taking over on October 1st, and one which will likely be dominated by the war in Ukraine.
For the long haul, if necessary, we will keep supporting Ukraine, and that is our message to Putin. We are in this, if necessary, for the long haul.
Deterring Russian aggression, bolstering defence and deepening partnerships in the Indo-Pacific region are also on the agenda. For the first time, representatives from Australia, New Zealand, Japan and South Korea will attend. Their involvement a reflection of a strategic shift in NATO's approach to global security and an attempt to counter the perceived threats posed by China and North Korea. But the conflict in Ukraine and how NATO can continue to support the war-torn country will be the focus of the talks. Defence ministers will be briefed by their Ukrainian counterpart on the latest battlefield developments. Dominic Velitis for CBC News, Riga, Latvia.
Both U.S. presidential candidates were on unfamiliar territory last evening. Republican Donald Trump faced a Latino audience on Univision, a Spanish-language network, and the Democratic Party's Kamala Harris was interviewed by the conservative-leaning Fox News. Ethel Musa is tracking both. And Ethel, let's begin with Kamala Harris. How did her interview play out?
Well, Kamala Harris's interview with Fox News is being described as combative, heated, and testy. She clashed repeatedly with her host, Bret Baier, who regularly interrupted her when discussing issues like illegal immigration, gender-affirming surgeries for prisoners, and Joe Biden's mental fitness. Some political experts are applauding her decision to speak with the conservative-leaning network, which is popular with millions of Republican voters who Harris is hoping to appeal to. Last night, she took aim at her opponent Donald Trump's policies and divisive style of politicking, and Harris made it clear she will bring her own stamp to the presidency.
My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes in to office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership.
And how did Donald Trump's town hall go?
The town hall was hosted by Univision, the biggest Spanish-language broadcaster in the U.S., and the audience was filled with undecided Hispanic voters. The former president touted his record on the economy, but he refused to back down on false claims that Haitian migrants were eating cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio. Trump also described January 6, the day his supporters stormed the Capitol in a riot, this way.
That was a day of love from the standpoint of the millions. It's like hundreds of thousands. It could have been the largest group I've ever spoken before.
Hispanic voters are a critical voting bloc, especially in two battleground states, Nevada and Arizona.
All right. Thank you, Ethel.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Ethel Musa in Washington. The Assembly of First Nations is expected to hold a vote today on changing how children are treated on reserves. The federal government is offering close to $48 billion to reform the First Nations child welfare system. The AFN is holding a special Chiefs Assembly in Calgary this week to decide how to move forward. As Olivia Stefanovich reports, First Nations leaders are being urged to accept a proposed deal before the next federal election.
Can we count on a Conservative government to negotiate a better deal on First Nations child welfare?
The national chief of the Assembly of First Nations says she isn't sure. So Cindy Woodhouse-Neepanak is encouraging the AFN to accept the Liberals' offer before there could be a change in government.
And I'm optimistic that we can find some common ground. But we are not at the stage where I can stand before you as national chief and guarantee that we can get a better deal with a Conservative administration.
Ottawa is proposing $47.8 billion over the next decade, an enormous amount of money to tackle a generational problem. The underfunding of First Nations child and family services on reserves, a system that's led to more children torn from their homes than at the height of residential schools.
We want to get this right.
Victor Linklater is one of the many AFN delegates raising questions about the proposed deal. Struck with the AFN just this past summer, leaving chiefs with little time to go over the fine print.
It's 178 pages. The longer we have with it, our experts are going in there and finding loopholes that's going to hurt our people. And one of the greatest fears I have is that we are going to become the discriminators of our own children.
A consideration weighing heavily on First Nations leaders as they prepare to accept or reject the federal government's multi-billion-dollar offer. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Saskatchewan's provincial election is less than 2 weeks away. The two main party leaders had a chance to square off last night in a televised debate. As Alexander Silberman reports, they clashed on the cost of living, education, and health care.
To not support a carbon tax, which would save small businesses across Canada.
We're in a provincial debate right now.
So very much.
NDP leader Carla Beck and Saskatchewan party leader Scott Moe sparred over their visions for the province, with Moe at times trying to tie the provincial NDP to the federal government.
17,000 people getting a job this past year are not a select few. That's creating a job every 30 minutes.
The debate largely focused on economic issues, with Moe trying to drive home that his government improved affordability by creating jobs. He's hoping to lead his party to a fifth straight win. The parties also clashed on their plans to reduce crime. Beck criticized the Saskatchewan party on education and health care, saying Moe's government has fallen short on spending. She says long wait times for surgery are not improving. People are dying
There's over 40,000 people working in the healthcare system. We're up 800.
The debate largely offered familiar talking points from both parties and few surprises. Daniel Westlake is a political scientist at the University of Saskatchewan. He says the debate likely helped to solidify existing voter support.
I'm not sure that either party had an advantage of pulling more voters to their side.
Saskatchewan voters will cast their ballots on Monday, October 28th. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Regina.
In just over a month, Taylor Swift will be in Toronto to perform 6 sold-out shows. As Lisa Shing tells us, many of her fans are falling victim to ticket scams online. Some thought they were buying tickets from friends.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem, it's me.
For die-hard fans, Taylor Swift's popularity has created some big problems.
It's just hard to point out who is real.
For a year now, Summer Nichols has been on Facebook in search of tickets to the Vancouver shows in December, to no avail.
They're very needy. They want you to send the money now.
Tickets to the singer's Canadian dates sold out instantly, and resale prices skyrocketed to thousands of dollars. Now that the shows are coming up, Swifties who weren't able to get them are on the hunt. So are scammers, hacking into Facebook accounts and posting they have tickets for sale. Someone even made a fake profile of Nichols' own account to try and scam others. Cybersecurity analyst Ritesh Kotak.
It adds an element of legitimacy when it's coming from a friend.
Trying to figure out what's real can be tough, and fans say Facebook isn't rushing to crack down on the fraud. So make sure you verify the seller's identity, like calling up that friend, says Toronto Police Detective David Coffey.
It's very, very difficult for that money to ever be seen again. It's beyond the financial loss. It's really the heartbreak that we see, because it's parents that are desperate to buy these tickets for their kids, or kids themselves who are desperate.
Like Nickel, who will continue scouring.
I'm willing to pay a pretty penny.
Even if it means standing outside the venue when the time comes. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Honey, I rose up from the dead, I do it all the time. I got a list of names and yours is in red underlined. I check it once, then I check it twice. Oh, look what you made me do.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. You can listen to us live every morning on the CBC News app. Just tap on the local icon. I'm Marcia Young.
Like your kingdom keys, they once belonged to me. You asked me for a place to sleep, locked me out, and threw a feast.
Hey, Taylor Swift opened for us. Get it? I'm Marcy Marcusa. Good morning, everyone. This is Information Radio, cheesy jokes and all. Thanks for joining us. 7 degrees. We'll get into more of the forecast in a moment. We're live in downtown Winnipeg. You're on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Well, this half hour on the program, we have part 2 of a feature interview with Chief Justice Glenn Joyal about the system in Manitoba. What does he say to the idea that our bail system is a revolving door for offenders to be back on the street? We're going to hear what he has to say when asked about that. Also, what part of our justice system does he call shameful compared to other provinces? Stay tuned. Part 2 of our interview is coming up. First, though, let's go to Heather Wells, who's in our news center this morning. She's got your daily headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, tensions between Canada and India are worrying some Indo-Canadians in Winnipeg. It comes as police in Canada investigate what they allege is the involvement of agents of the Indian government in violence in Canada. Winnipegger Indirjit Singh Brar, a Canadian citizen, worries about his community, but also about the potential impacts of travel. We'll hear about that. And a Winnipeg landlord wants to know why the city's fining victims of arson. Yesterday, City Council's Executive Policy Committee approved a proposal to lower fire service fees charged to vacant building owners, but the fees they voted for are still higher than city staff had recommended. We're going to hear from one property owner whose property caught fire 5 times before the city tore it down. We'll hear how much she was fined in our next local news at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
And the mayor just doubling down on that, by the way. So if you missed our interview with Scott Gillingham, it'll be posted later on our app. 8:12 right now. Let's talk to Abby about the weather.
Mostly sunny conditions in the southern part of the province with warmer temperatures, while the north we've seen clouds and cooler. It's going to be cooler, and then you'll be feeling chilly up north. But right now it's clear outside. The sun making its appearance. Mild start to Thursday in the city with current temperature at 7. The sun is trying to make its appearance right now. It's going to be much warmer than usual. We will be warming up to a high of 19 for Winnipeg today, which is about 10 degrees above the average for this time of the year. Our normal high is supposed to be around 9. It will for sure be a lovely day with the sunny conditions. We'll see some clouds will roll in later, and then tonight we'll see some partly cloudy conditions with a chance of showers, but that would not hinder sky gazers from seeing that supermoon that will be making its very bright appearance tonight. In other regions, mostly cloudy and a mix of sun and clouds in the forecast, plus a chance of showers in the north. Churchill still seeing some showers at this point, but that will be tapering off as you get close to the noon period. Then you see some fog patches dissipating. But for Thompson, you warm up to 11. Churchill will get to 5. And down south, we'll see temperatures hover near 19 and 21 for most of the regions. Gimli, Steinbach, Maurice all today hovering near 16 degrees.
All right, thanks, Abby
Thank
Adiani.
you.
Let's go to Corey Funk, who's got the news on your commute this Thursday morning. Hello.
Hello. Got a call from Chris on the commuter line. He said southbound La Jamodiere at Warman. So that's just before Dougal. There's a stalled car in the median lane. So keep right to get around that. At the time, this was maybe about 10, 15 minutes ago, he said that it wasn't really too much of an issue, but it just happened. It might throw off some folks coming down La Jamodiere southbound at Warman. Also, just looking ahead for folks in the Waverly West area, a reminder if you plan to find yourself driving down Eaglewood Drive these in the next couple days, the city's going to be putting up a fire paramedic service station, a modular one. And so that means that all the southbound lanes starting tonight at 8 p.m. on Eaglewood Drive, starting from Skyline Drive to the Element on Eaglewood Complex entrance there, is going to be closed. And that's expected to last at least until October 19th. That's Saturday at 8 p.m. Could end sooner, but they say it'll go till then. And also no parking as well along Eaglewood Drive from Waverly to Skyline Drive during that time. So heads up there. If you see anything else going on right now, though, be like Chris who called us. Give us a call. If you're walking, biking, driving, I'd love to hear from you. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, you hear it a lot in casual conversation, the idea that our court system is a revolving door for offenders. Today, in part 2 of our feature interview with Chief Justice Glenn Joyal, we will ask him about that notion. Joyal's been at the helm of Manitoba Court of King's Bench for 13 years in our province. I sat down with him in his courtroom on Tuesday to talk about reconciliation, delays in the court system, and the escalation of petty crime and youth violence in Manitoba. This summer, he presided over the case of serial killer Jeremy Skibitsky and the murders of Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and Mushkade Bishike Ikweban. And today's interview begins actually with a question about the sentence that he gave Skibitsky and what he said about it in court. I had read, I know that when you were doing the Skibitsky sentence, you noted in handing it down the, quote, inadequacy of the mandatory life sentence as it must be served concurrently. That follows that 2022 Supreme Court decision. Right. So you can't serve, just for the sake of the listeners here and the viewers, you can't serve consecutive sentences as you might in other systems. That changed in Canada. Do you think our system should return to consecutive sentences?
No. What I said in my remarks, and I can talk to you about it because it reflects what was said in my remarks with the Crown in the exchange that we had at the time of the sentence. And I don't want to go into a realm that really will be left with the political actors. But I did say that in a case like this one, where you had 4 separate horrific murders committed and spaced out in time, each one of those murders was planned and deliberate. And each one of those murders was of a vulnerable person. Each one of those murders was racialized. It seems to me odd that all you can do is impose that one sentence. That doesn't mean consecutive sentences like they have in the States is a rational approach. But I posed the question with the Crown, is there not room for some enhanced sentence for each of those types of cases? Not in this case, I'm talking generally speaking, that would perhaps bring some dignity to each victim and properly reflect and I think recognize the horrors of each of those cases, because otherwise you're left with one sentence, as you have in this case, of 25 years. And I think it does raise questions about the extent to which the court can recognize the dignity of what happened to those victims.
I know you just said you don't want to get political, but I have to ask you because you said, is there some way? I know that Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has said that he would use a notwithstanding clause to overturn a decision and to give judges discretion to hand out consecutive 25-year blocks of parole and ineligibility to offenders who commit multiple first-degree murders. What would you think of that?
I'm making no comment about. Look, I believe profoundly in the separation of powers. Judges should stick to their lane. The comments I just made to you relate to the comments that I would have made to the Crown in this case. It's for the politicians to do what they think they must, and they'll be ultimately held to account.
Let's move to another topic area here. I want to talk about the escalating crime just overall in community. What role can the court play
in our current situation, in your view, with escalating crime? What do you say to people who just feel like, well, they just say the court system must not be doing its job because I'm seeing these offenders back out on the street?
First of all, I don't dismiss them in a condescending way, because that's not helpful. To the extent that people misunderstand the system or maybe misunderstand what courts do and why we do it, I come back to one of my first answers. We have to provide more information. People have a right to be worried if they see a phenomenon going on with respect to crime, for example, and it's in their minds not being properly addressed. But they may not be correct in assuming that the blame lies with the courts. I'm not going to comment on any individual case, but all I know is that it's important for the court, along with the media who understand as well as anybody the court's responsibility and how the system works, to ensure that the public information is out there to allow what I think and remain believing is a rational citizenry to understand why, for example, a person is released on bail. And why, in some cases, that had to be the result. Just as I think it's important as well for people to understand when we make and take certain initiatives with respect to judicial reconciliation, that in the criminal realm, they understand that as it relates to the disproportionate presence of Indigenous Manitobans in the justice system, it in many cases relates to their inability to get out on bail because of the socioeconomic reality in which they live. So there is injustices all around, and we, I think, have a role in explaining not just how we do what we do and why we do what we do and why the law exists as it does, but we also have, I think, a duty to explain why certain social phenomena exist that we probably have to rectify to ensure that access to justice, for example, properly and broadly understood, can be realized. So it again, as so much of this does, comes down to public information.
I know that in this court, Court of King's Bench, I know that you wouldn't be dealing with a lot of youth crime, but I do want to ask you, Chief Justice, to weigh in on what might be missing in terms of the systems or might be able to be strengthened in terms of the system regarding what some of the trends that happen in youth crime. And I'm thinking if someone hands down a sentence, for example, a young person is court-ordered to have supports or mental health follow-ups, you know, we know that often we don't have those resources in the system to help. How much does that get in the way of rehabilitation for young people in this province?
Well, it's important. I'd say it's critical. I mean, rehabilitation is, according to the jurisprudence that's been well established over the last 25 years, the primary principle of sentencing that has to be kept uppermost in the minds of courts when they're dealing with young people. And when rehabilitation can't be properly realized, for example, because of the absence of resources, particularly in the area of mental health, you're effectively denying a real important tool for the rehabilitation of a young person who may be suffering from mental illness. The criminal justice system, like the justice system generally over the last, I'd say 50 years, has been chronically under-financed and under-resourced by provincial governments. It's not necessarily surprising, but it is still lamentable. And there's health issues, there's education issues, and the like. My court, the federal government appoints us, but it's the provincial government that funds us. For the longest time, we were dealing with a limited amount of resources provided to us to ensure that much of what it is we do was done in a properly financed way.
If a whole bunch of increased funding flowed your way, where would you hope it would be spent?
Well, it's going to sound awfully banal and awfully mundane, but we could start with properly funding, you know, our clerks, our registry, our technological capacity. The civil litigators in this province can't believe that we're not at some point going to have a more sophisticated form of e-filing. Most provinces across the country, I'm happy to compare ourselves favorably with other provinces. In this realm, it's shameful. We compare very badly. We don't have a system of e-filing in Manitoba that's worth its weight. And that's something we ought to be ashamed of, because important civil matters are not being as quickly dealt with, even if I'm proud of the minimal delays, as quickly as they could. And it's costing clients money. So those are areas that money could go to right away. And then obviously areas like the ones you were talking about. They're sort of ancillary areas of the justice system. Better forensic capacities to speed up, for example, forensic examinations. That's shameful. And you could go on and on and on. But don't trust me with the purse strings, Marcy. I may spend been more than you'd expect, because there's no shortage of things that need to be improved. But they don't all require more judges.
That is part of a feature conversation I had with Manitoba Court of King's Bench Chief Justice Glenn Joyal. We spoke Tuesday at the courthouse. You can find videos of the conversations we've aired. We had a feature piece yesterday, and of course what you just heard on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
8:24 a.m. is the time right now. It's 7 degrees. It's Thursday morning, and it is school day number 1 on the cycle. You're probably already heading in the doors of school at this time of day. Well, I want to talk about something that's happening over your lunch hour. Between 12:30 and 1, the call-in conversation on Radio Noon on CBC today comes out of a poll that actually has some good news in it. It's a poll from the Heart and Stroke Foundation in this country, and it says that there's been a 75% decrease in the death rate from heart disease and stroke over the past 70 years. So it takes a long look. But heart and stroke related deaths are still the second leading cause of death in Canada. And so the question we're going to ask today on the call-in is, how has your life been touched by heart disease or stroke? And if it has, how have you made changes in your life to become more heart healthy? And maybe you have some questions about how to protect your heart and your brain health. So today's call-in conversation, the guest is Dr. Patrice Lindsay, lead expert in stroke best practices. Guest host on the call-in is Chloe Friesen this afternoon. So between 12:30 and 1 o'clock on Radio Noon, you can call live with your questions, and you'll hear more about that poll. Also, always like to remind you can call now and leave a message. The number for the call-in to leave a message about heart and stroke is 204-788-3797. 204-788-3797. Bit of music now from Brent and David out of Manitoba. This is River Runnin' Wide.
But I wouldn't trade it. There's a fiddle tune on the Métis hour, white sunrise and crocus flowers. We hold our tongue more than I'll admit. But you're in luck if you listen up. I'll let you in on where happiness is. You don't need a reason. Go tell them that they're right. And let them keep believing grass is greener on their side. You bet I keep a secret from the left coast and the right. You're bragging would-be treason against this river running wide. Well, I bet that city apartment lost a couple stars when your neighbors moved in. It's the party every weekend. It has your toes off the deep end. It feels like you're waiting on the wind. Well, I don't care from where you're coming from or where you've been. You don't need a reason. Go tell them that they're right. You let them keep believing grass is greener on their side. You bet I keep a secret from the tell them that they're right. You let them keep believing grass is greener on their side. You bet I keep a secret from the left coast and the right. You're bragging wood-bed treason against this river running wide.
Brent and David with some solo stuff there, River Running Wide. By the way, he's not going to be on Tim and the Glory Boys Canoegrass tour that kicked off early October because for the first time, he writes on his Facebook page in 7 years, he's sitting out the run because he just welcomed a new baby boy last month. Sounds like a good reason to me. Stay home with the fam. We got a call about traffic here. Manitoba's roaming rector called to say that the westbound perimeter between St. Anne's and St. Mary's is crawling right now and getting in the way of roaming. Not sure why it's crawling, but that is what's going on. So you might be tied up a little bit. The westbound perimeter between St. Anne's and St. Mary's a little slow. If you've got something late in the drive to tell us about, walk or roll, if you're on your bike or your active transportation mode is affected this morning, let us know what's going on. 788-3093 is where you can always call us on the CBC commuter line. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC. My name is Marcy Marcusa. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. And your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's 7 degrees and sunny. Bit of a breeze out there. It's going to be another windy, warm day. A high today of 19. Tensions between Canada and India are worrying some Indo-Canadians in Winnipeg. It comes as police in Canada investigate what they allege is the involvement of agents of the Indian government in violence on Canadian soil. Canada expelled 6 Indian diplomats. India has denied the RCMP's allegations and quickly retaliated by ordering 6 Canadian diplomats to leave that country. Now, both countries have hinted at further punitive actions. Winnipegger Indirjit Singh Brar, a Canadian citizen, worries about the potential impacts on travel.
When we go back to the India, so in the airports, then we have to get more investigated. So that's why the people have the trauma. Like they will go there, maybe the customs, and everyone will ask more questions or where you are coming, where you are going. So that's the problem.
India requires all nationals who become citizens of foreign countries to surrender their Indian citizenship, requiring them to obtain an overseas citizen of India visa to travel to that country. Winnipeg's mayor says we are getting closer to having a new police chief. Scott Gillingham won't commit, though, to a timeline. Former police chief Danny Smythe retired at the beginning of September. Gillingham met with the police board this week about the selection of the new chief.
We're into the interview process. We'll be starting that pretty soon. But as mayor, I want to see a police chief who is a great collaborator with the province and tackles some of these issues like retail crime.
Another former police chief, Devon Clunas, says the next police chief won't be able to solve all the problems of the city alone. Clunas says change will require a collective effort. A Winnipeg business owner has used social media to teach a lesson to 2 young thieves. It happened last week at the beer vendor attached to Four Crowns Restaurant and Bar on McPhillips. Owner Ravi Rambaran says his surveillance camera captured 2 boys stealing alcohol. He posted their photos to social media and was impressed when the 2 came forward to confess. They are 14 and 15 years old. At that age, he felt it wouldn't be helpful to involve police, so Rambaran talked to them instead about the consequences of their actions.
I thought it was good to reach out and just, give these kids a chance, let them learn from someone who's not a teacher or a principal or a police officer, how these things can go bad and why it's important to stop now.
Rambaran says the teens have apologized and have offered to work off what they stole from his business. A Winnipeg landlord wants to know why the city is fining victims of arson. Yesterday, City Council's Executive Policy Committee approved a proposal to lower fire service fees charged to owners of vacant buildings. But the fees they voted for are still higher than city staff had recommended. Maria Suzuki owned a property on Elgin Avenue that caught fire 5 times before the city tore it down. She was fined $138,000.
It's good that they realize that they have to make a change for that,
But I still don't understand why us landlord has to pay for the fire fee if it's an arson, and then if he were a victim for like the crime.
A recent report found the city collected just $79,000 of the $1.2 million in fines it issued last year. Suzuki says nearly half of the money was money she had paid. The Assembly of First Nations meeting in Calgary is expected to vote today on whether to accept a $47 billion child welfare settlement offered by the federal government. AFN National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Niebenak is urging the chiefs accept the deal. She says there's no guarantee any future governments will match that offer.
I'm optimistic that we can find some common ground. But we are not at the stage where I can stand before you as National Chief and guarantee that we can get a better deal with a Conservative administration.
The settlement addresses the chronic underfunding First Nations Child and Family Services have faced over the generations. Operation Red Nose hopes generous Winnipeggers will step up and keep it going. The Holiday Safe Ride service recently lost its longtime host charity, Manta Swim Club. Elisha Dacey at Operation Red Nose says a brand new charity called the Winnipeg Kids Foundation has taken over as host charity. However, Operation Red Nose still needs to raise $100,000 by November 15th.
We need to replace technology, especially our phones are pretty ancient. Our app needs a serious upgrade. And then, of course, space for the volunteers and all sorts of incidentals that come along with marketing, etc. So it's more complicated than people think.
Dacey says they also need to cover operating costs like gas. For its part, Manta Swim Club, in a statement, says Operation Red Nose had been providing less revenue as well. It says it is difficult to recruit volunteer drivers. You can find more Manitoba news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Thanks to Alana Coolin, Heather Wells, and Megan Ketchison in our news center, to our team of associate producers in our current affairs unit, as well as our leaders in unit, Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson. Thanks to our live team, Kevin Ipatebo behind the controls of YouTube. Thanks, Kev, as well as Corey Funk and Abby Adiyemi, who always have close to the last word. Corey?
On Abinogi-Meekina between Lachemodiere and Lakewood, the westbound curb lane is closed for street construction until the 25th. So expect some delays. Also, westbound perimeter between St. Anne's and St. Mary's, super slow right now. Mike just called us today. That's because construction happening at the bridge there. So keep right. Zipper merging is going okay, but still pretty slow.
Abby?
Much of the province will enjoy sunny to partly cloudy conditions today, with breezy conditions also being felt. Highs will range from 5 in Churchill, climbing to 21 for Morris. So we should be seeing a mix of showers sometime this evening in the north, and some areas of the south would also be feeling that as well. Then temperatures will be deep into lows of 2 to 7. Winnipeg climbing to 19.
All right,
today.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
We'll drop the mic. That does it for us. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll talk to you again tomorrow on Information Radio, and take care, be well. Remember, reach out to your public broadcaster anytime, Radio 893 at cbc.ca or on our listener lines. Next local programming is Radio Noon. But right now, The Current